through it, and it's apparently the week that Sterling and Jason went on vacation.
Coincidentally at the same time.
Yeah.
Not great. Not ideal for us. But, we're just a couple grinders.
We just do it. Unless Norman, who's normally on Tuesdays, is on vacation as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have an edition of The Zone that is what I wanted to do. And we're going to talk a lot about college sports because that's what I like to talk about. We will hear from, I'm going to be fair to everybody. SEC Media Days are going on, so we'll hear some Eli Drinkwitz and things like that. But we're going to talk to Chris Gervino, sideline reporter for Missouri football and basketball. We're going to talk some Kansas with Matt Tate. You heard the promo right before we came on. The basketball tournament's going on. We got a Sunflower Showdown tonight, right?
Little TBT action.
Little TBT action. You'll hear it on Sports Radio 810. And we'll also talk to John Kurtz about K-State stuff. And he covers the Big 12. I saw John, a former intern here years ago. He's a grown man now. I saw him down at Big 12 Media Days, talked. He's got a podcast where he does a lot of Big 12 stuff and Kansas State stuff. So we'll talk a little TBT with him, a little football, all those things, because I do think when we get to Chiefs season, the Chiefs are such a big deal now. And when Chiefs season, I mean like next Wednesday when Chiefs have practice that people can go watch, we kind of don't have as much time to talk about the other things. We do our best. On the shows. I know Jason usually has a college guest on once or twice a week. Seren tries to as well, and Steven in the morning definitely does the New Day Blitz, where on Fridays he gets you ready for all of them. But now is the time of year where there's not as much going on. Maybe we get a little preview and some of the business at hand in college football and college athletics, because that is what's going on at these media days that are happening around. We already had our Big 12 ones, just for somehow they only did 2 days of that, but the SEC is going to do this in 4. They can squeeze it in 4 days in Tampa because it's a big deal. It just means more, and that's what's happening now. So we'll talk to all of our local schools about that, but we'll also talk about the Royals, Chiefs, whatever you'd like to talk about. I know Jason doesn't normally take phone calls, but if you want to call,
do you just want to open this up?
We can open it up. If people want to talk to us in this first hour, that's the time we have for phone calls. We'll be pretty busy the rest of the time, but if you want to talk to us, feel free. I'm free to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about right now.
Leabo's just a man of the people. Yeah, sports-wise.
Don't get in here asking me a bunch of Jake questions about daylight saving time or something like that. Or Mandela effect. None of that. But I'm willing to take your questions about whatever you'd like. But we'll kick the show off with little Royals last night. This team is just so wild to me, Michael. They had a horrible stretch down the stretch to end the first half. We've been talking about the trade deadline, which I heard Steven say this earlier. It's true. It doesn't seem like it's getting any closer, even though I know that every single day it gets closer. But it's like we're still not quite there yet. August 3rd trade deadline seems to be kind of like just stretching off into the distance. But so that's what people want to talk about now. Michael Waka, who pitched well last night, is someone who many people would love the Royals to trade away. They're apprehensive to trade any one way because someone needs to pitch the games for them. And that does not make people happy when they heard J.J. Piccolo say that a couple weeks ago. But if they get some other players for him, I think they are open to hearing anything from anyone about this. But I wouldn't hold my breath about the Royals trading Michael Waka. Unless somebody gets desperate, we'll see. But this team, as I said, just stumbled down the stretch going into the All-Star game. And then they come out and they beat the Padres a couple of times. And they get absolutely boat raced on Sunday. And that's kind of like what you walk into the week with. And you kind of forget that, they beat the Padres twice. That's not so bad. They won the series. They probably lost. What did they lose the run differential in that series by? They lost by 17. They won by 1. They won by 1 and then they won by 5. Yeah. So they lost that by 11.
But when you have a negative 99 run differential, it kind of adds
a lot
up.
Of those. It adds up really quickly. Now, they have gotten, just destroyed a couple of times. You can't take those games out. But their run differential wouldn't be so bad if you take the 17 out. Would they lose 22-1 to the White Sox one night, too?
I think was it 22 or 23?
Yeah.
I think it was 22.
20-something to 1, right? And then that one, he says they just had these weird games. And then last night, they go and they find a way to scrap one out and win another one. So against the NL West, since the break. This team's 3-1. But does it feel like they're 3-1 to you?
It feels like they've fallen ass backwards into a couple wins. And actually, if you look at the first game against the Padres, it went to extras.
Right.
Carter Jensen walked them off. They won, 7-6 in 11 or 12?
But also a game where they had the bases loaded against one of the best relievers in baseball. Didn't score. But they loaded the bases against one, and then they just couldn't even make contact with the ball to hope to get anything in.
Which that's not out of the ordinary.
But we just remember the 19-2 as much as anything.
What it also doesn't help that was the final game of the series.
Yes.
If that was sandwiched in between a win and a win, then
like I said,
forget
it's Sunday.
about that.
It's how you walk into Monday. Oh, yeah, Sunday. Everyone's, it's not late at night. Oh, you just turn it on. There's not much going on Sundays. People watch the World Cup a little bit Sunday. They might have had the British Open on early, but hey, the Royals are on here. And I think they were on Channel 5 as well, a little easier for everyone to watch it. And then you're like, click. Now, don't need to watch this. It's already whatever. Why is Tyler Tolbert pitching twice a week? You know what I mean? He's thrown 3 times in the last 2 weeks, maybe. So
he's got 5 appearances on the year.
That means they've gotten crushed a few times. But they found a way to win last night. But the story last night is because they have one great player, and that's Bobby Witt Jr., and he had to leave the game. He's already had some issues earlier this year where he was not quite right. That was a knee when he went in the hole. That was about a month and a half ago against the Cardinals, right? And he kind of hurt his knee a little bit, came out of the game, missed a little bit, and now it's the back again. So he came out of the game last night. We don't have a huge update yet today, but here's Matt Quatrero last night following the game about his superstar having to leave.
Yeah, he got tightened up pretty good. His back tightened up pretty well there early in the game. So we're getting him evaluated tonight and see how he feels.
Was it a specific play that?
No, it's just been the same, moving around. I mean, he tried to get loose. He did get loose one time prior to the game. He didn't do anything early, but just, he's a guy that's playing at high intensity all the time, and just tightened up.
So that's not good that Bobby had to leave the game. We'll watch and see if he's available to go tonight. Here's what I know about Bobby. Bobby wants to play every day. He doesn't want days off. He doesn't like not playing, so he's going to do whatever it takes to play. He doesn't care that the Royals are in last place. He wants to play baseball. That's how he is. They kind of have to protect him from himself sometimes, I think, because he is a tightly wound athlete, but he does a lot of work with his diet and his exercise and his pregame routines. I mean, he's one of those steady Eddie dudes. Like, the game starts at this time of day, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this to get ready to go for the game. It's a science to him, right? And you put something like this in the middle of it, adds a little more work to him, but he's going to keep doing whatever he can to play. He is not a guy. There are plenty of players in all sports who are like, all right, I'm a little hurt. What place are we in? Okay, give me a week. Let me get ready, And sometimes you see, like I think at the end of last year, the Chiefs, after Patrick got hurt, they were telling people, all right, you're hurt. There's no reason for you, Trey Smith, to go try to play in this last game. I know you want to play too, but we're not going to let you play. Because there was nothing for them to do at the end of the year last year. They had a couple guys that they
shut everybody down. I think Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie,
Rashee Rice.
Leo Chenal was one of them. Rashee Rice. Eventually
Simmons.
They shut down Worthy.
Yeah, Simmons
had that hand injury, so maybe he was more of
But if it's you're playing the Super Bowl, are you playing?
If you're fighting for a playoff spot, he's probably figuring out a way to come back.
That's right. And so with Bobby, I expect if Bobby has a chance to play, he's going to want to play. We'll see what happens tonight. It's interesting that your back gets hurt. These guys get pretty loosened up. It was hot last night, man. I mean, you got a tight back last night, then you got a tight back because it didn't take much to get lathered up out there. I mean, the fans in the stands were melting last night. That was pretty stifling. Sunday would have been horrible out there in the sun watching the game at 1 p.m, but last night was thick. Just a nasty night to be out there. And if his back tightened up during a night like that, that means he's hurting pretty bad. I think he is getting more in tune with his body now, enough to where he knows to tell them, hey, I'm not feeling quite right. And then they'll make the decision, you can't play, So I don't know, as we get closer and they're still in last place and all this, maybe the prudent thing is to where normally he would work his butt off to go play in a game, maybe it'll be like, all right, get yourself ready to play Wednesday. And that's a day game, and then there's a day off, and then you're playing the other day. You know what I mean? Or maybe, I don't know. We'll see. The important thing is back injuries are dicey. You don't want Bobby Witt Jr. to have back issues because those can wreck a career.
Especially in a season that means nothing at this point.
Yeah.
There's no benefit in putting Bobby Witt Jr. out there if he's not, I don't want to say 100% ready to go, but somebody who's at least 90%.
Yeah. But like I said, he's going to want to play because that's what he does. He's a gamer. That's how he was raised. That's how he wants to play. And you love to have those guys who want to play all the time. The Royals have had plenty of guys like that over the years. And if you have great players who want to play every day, it's the best thing in the world to have, you know? Now, like I said, they can be a danger to themselves because they play hard and they get hurt, and then they want to keep playing. You have to protect it sometimes. So we'll see what happens with Bobby Witt. I'm sure there'll be an update sometime before the game today about what's going on with him. But let's just give the Royals a little glow up because they did win a game, and it was, I don't know, is a bunt off exciting? Sure, it was exciting. Wasn't it? It wasn't a walk-off home run. It wasn't a walk-off double.
Walk-offs in general are awesome.
They're awesome.
Maybe not as cool when you give up 2 runs in the top of the 9th to make it a walk-off, but
they took care of that. They don't worry about that. That part doesn't matter. They won the game. Just like it was exciting that there were 7 runs scored in the 10th inning the other night. The game was a nothing, right? And then the Royals gave up a run, and then they had the bases loaded in the 9th inning and couldn't score. Then they gave up 3 and they scored 4. Forget about those first part. It was a great bottom of the 10th inning, and it was a great bottom of the 9th inning last night. So here is Matt Quatraro talking about executing the play to win the game with the bunt.
Well, yeah, I mean, proud of them for doing it. I mean, we work on it. They know that's part of the game. I thought that was our best chance to get the run in there. They made the adjustment and brought the first baseman way in. It's still a really tough play, charging, first baseman, trying to flip it with the glove. So take our chances there. But, I mean, he stuck his nose in there and got it done.
So Nick Lofton did get the bunt down. Didn't get it down the first time, but they kept it on. And Lofton, after the game, was exciting about actually executing and coming through when it counted.
Yeah, just trying to execute a job and put a bunt down. Wasn't able to do it on the first one, but got the sign again to put it down. And I've been bunting a lot lately, so felt very confident in that situation to be able to get one down. And then, of course, anytime you get a win, it's a joyous one. So really happy for our team, really happy for all the guys that worked really hard for that win. Waka, unbelievable job from him. Our bullpen did what they needed to do. Defense did what they needed to do, and came out on top.
They did come out on top. I normally go out on Mondays, but Easton went out there for me last night. You heard Easton ask Q a question in that first bite. He's
great stuff from Easton.
He's getting out there, bowing his chest out a little bit. And normally, I told Easton, I texted him after the game was over, and I'm like, they won the game. The music's going to be playing. You got to get the microphone close because you can get drowned out there. If they got the music really blaring, the locker room's big and the speakers are in the ceiling. So if you happen to be talking to someone who's right under a speaker, it can get really loud. And a lot of times it is some hip-hop music.
A little bit of rap, a little bit of, I think, R&B. And
sometimes there are words that we can't have on the radio in the thing. So
a lot of the time.
When I'm sitting there recording something, I'm listening, I'm going, oof, is this going to be all right? You know what? You don't want, not like we're going to really get in trouble. We're not intentionally playing words or something that can't be on, federal airwaves, right? But you worry about it a little bit. So I said, make sure you get up nice and close with your phone to record, and so we don't end up like having the music blaring through too much. And then so I'm listening to the audio, and I'm like, who's got the aux cord last night? That was an Ozzy Osbourne song right there called Mr. Crowley off Blizzard of Oz, Ozzy's first solo album. This is a song you don't know.
I was trying to pick it out. I was trying to pick out the song because I was like, I don't typically hear that coming from the Royals locker room.
Normally, you got a little something else going on there. And I'm like, I don't know who had the aux cord or who did that because that's off the album Blizzard of Oz. You know the song Crazy Train, right?
Love the song. Crazy
Same
Town.
album, right? That came out in 1981, long before young Michael Darcy was born. But I had those first 2 Ozzy records. When I say records, I mean I had the records. These are actual records, albums. And when I was in like 5th grade is when those came out. Little dicey stuff for 5th grade. You know, you got Ozzy Osbourne's little heavy metal-y bit or whatever.
A little intense.
So, but I heard that in the background. I'm like, wow, we're going deep into Ozzy, getting Mr. Crowley playing. It was good. It was very good. I like to hear that. And I could hear just enough of it to make me happy, and not too much that it drowned out what was going on. Now the song gets a little louder later. It was just about to pop at the end when the drums came in. That was the big keyboard intro there with Nick Lofton. So we'll remember that. Now let's hear it lastly from a player here, Josh Rojas, who ended up being a big part of that 9th inning. And it's funny, you know, that you're talking about 9th inning. It's late in the day. You've been out there on the field. You've been putting it in. People don't think about, you know, getting tired on a baseball field very often. We just watched the World Cup. We see people run around 3, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles in a game, back and forth. You watch, you know, NFL running big routes, chasing people down, fighting, all that. Basketball, up and down and up and down and up and down. The stress you put on your body when you play hockey, those guys jump through those shifts, minute and a half, 2 minutes, because there's so much going on. Rojas was kind of gassed at the end of that thing last night. And here he is taking you through that 9th inning, how wild it was. He scored the game-winning run, but he had to get on base first.
I was trying to get my breath. I was exhausted. You know, came out of the box hard, trying to get a double there. I look up, and Ramos already has the ball, so I had to hit the brakes, go back to first. And then Tolley lays down the bunt. I'm trying to beat that out at second. Carter hits a sac fly, tagging up, going to third. First safety squeeze goes foul, and at that point I was like, okay, I just got to get my breath here for, you know, one more run at this thing. And he got it down, and that was the last gas I had right there. I don't know what would have happened after that one.
You have your breath now, you're good.
I mean, it didn't help that Lofton decided to run out to center field on the walk-off. That was even more running there. So no, but yeah, I'm good now. But yeah, there was that bottom of the 9th. I was pretty toast.
Pretty funny. You think about that. It was hot. Now the sun was down, but it was still probably feeling like 90 degrees or something last night. And you're trying to win a game, hit one that might be a double. You run your butt off. You heard him say hit the brakes, had to run back. Then you get the bunt down. You got to hustle to second. There's no jogging to second base on that one. Sac fly to go from second to third. That wasn't a sac fly to right field. It was right there to left center. You got to hustle on that one. And the pitch clock's going now, right? This ain't old school. Bunt.
Can't milk it anymore.
No. Then you run down on the first foul bunt, get your butt back there. They bunt it again. That's pretty funny. And then it's like, you're going to have to go to the dog pile in the center field? Let's have that dog pile at first base. Pretty funny stuff from Rojas there.
He's also 6'1", 200 pounds. So, like, to do that, and
Yeah.
even though it wasn't the heat of the day, it was still low 80s.
Oh, yeah. Thick, warm, humid,
Humid.
all that. And
That's too much
you
running
got
for
the
me.
you got the intensity going, right? Because you're trying to win a game. You see a lot. There's a lot of loafing in all sports at different times of the sport or whatever. But when it comes down to it, like that, and that is where the pitch clock actually, you know, used to be maybe 30, 40 seconds, but your pitches, the guy would step out, you know, especially after a foul, sacrifice bunt, you know.
Adjust the batting
Just the
gloves,
bat,
put
you know,
pine tar in your
pine
bat.
tar, go over, do the thing. Now you get back in there now. You get a few extra seconds if the ball is fouled off. You know, you're not supposed to step out of the box at all, like if you just miss a bunt. But, you know, he did run a lot there. And it was funny, though, at the end. We got a dog pile in center field. Let's keep that thing close.
Out of all the people who could, I guess, not afford to dog it, Josh Rojas is somebody that
You best
is
be
lucky
running,
to
yeah.
be on the squad right now, just given the circumstances of the season.
Absolutely.
He's going to hustle his butt off.
Yeah, and he made some big plays in the field as well. Nice night for him. Good win for the Royals. Hey, it is what it is. They're not great. I will play one more here because the other thing that happened last night is Sal Perez hit a home run. Another one. Inching closer and closer to being the Royals' all-time home run leader. And it's going to happen sometime. Here is Matt Quatrero talking about Salvi and his pursuit of George Brett's record.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's wanted it since last year, you know. I mean, trying to put up huge numbers, and but to me it's a good sign. The last two are dead center. I mean, he's squaring those balls up. He's feeling decent at the plate right now, and he's got power to all fields.
What is it like for you to watch him come up to the plate in these at bats, knowing what's looming?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan in that moment. Like, want it to happen. Want it to happen, quickly, so it can be celebrated. But again, we know Salvi. All he wants to do is win the game too. So I certainly hope it happens in a win as well.
Yeah, they would love it to be in a win. So he's one behind George Brett now, 316 to 317. And that was a rocket last night. I mean, over the center field wall by a bunch. And he's going to get there. And you listen, George Brett's last home run did not come in a pennant-winning season for the Royals either. He retired in 1993. So you get your home runs when you get them. And Sal Perez is going to break that record this year. And it's not going to come in a playoff run. It's not going to be a walk-off to put the Royals in the wild card or something like that. But it's still an amazing record and a great accomplishment for a player who has been with this organization his entire career. Listen, he's not the player that George Brett was, okay? George Brett's one of the greatest players of all time. But George Brett wasn't a big home run hitter, and he's still the Royals record holder in home runs because he played his entire career for the Royals. And 317 home runs is nothing to blow your nose at and say that's no big deal. And Salvi's going to get there. And it'll be great to see when it happens. And I would, just like you, and I think Sal would say the same thing, he would not like it to be in a 19-2 game where you got it, somewhere you'd like it to be in a game you won, and you'd like it to mean a little bit, as much as it can in the 2026 season, which I don't think is much, honestly.
At least make the game a little bit closer. But, if Salvi, it's not really if Salvi breaks the record, but when, I think it just shows more of his commitment to the city. And that's why it means so much because, like you said, George Brett was a better player than Salvador Perez, but Salvi's been here for what, 13, 14 years at this point? So he has a commitment to the city, and through all of the bad times, and there's been good times too, but through all the bad times, he's been there and been consistent. And so it would be pretty cool to see him break that at Kauffman and just celebrate that. Like, that is one of those small milestones in the season that doesn't mean much that fans can be excited about.
Yeah, since 2011, so more than that. He had the whole year in 2019 he couldn't play, so he's 15 years strong of playing. 1,800 games for the Royals. He's got the 316 on home runs. He's been a really, borderline Hall of Fame catcher. When you look at things like WAR and the black ink on Baseball Reference, catchers, it's a different deal. They get judged differently than someone does out there. I don't know if he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, but he's won 5 Silver Sluggers, 5 Gold Gloves, World Series MVP. He's a champion, 9-time All-Star. I think the player you're going to have to watch is Yadier Molina, because Molina's got a little bit more WAR than he does, but he's a 9-time Gold Glove winner, a 10-time All-Star, only 1 Silver Slugger. He's won a couple World Series.
When is he eligible?
It'll be like next year,
Okay.
I think. But he only had 176 home runs, batted .277. Salvi's power numbers are better. But that's the guy to kind of watch. That's the comp of, in my mind, to see how he gets treated by World Series voters. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes, because they're not putting catchers in the Hall of Fame every 2 seconds. That's just not the way it works, because they aren't the position. Especially, Sal he's not catching as much now, but he's a catcher. That's what he is.
Even when Salvi was winning Gold Gloves, there was a lot of advanced baseball nerds that would complain about his frame rate and just his overall defensive metrics, where Gold Glove may not have been the best indication of how good or bad he was defensively. I don't think that he was as bad as some of the silly advanced stats would have people believe, but Gold Gloves are not the end-all, be-all for being elite defensively. A lot of it's name recognition at a certain point.
Oh, there's no question about that. And they put Mauer went in recently, and he caught, but I wonder how many games Mauer caught compared because he got out of catching fairly
quick.
early. People still kind of call him a catcher. He didn't. I'm looking him up. He didn't catch a game in his last 5 years in the majors. Like not even one game did he catch, and he was not catching a ton when he did that. And Maurer is his WAR's 55. Won some Gold Gloves, 5-time Silver Slugger, kind of similar kind of stats that way. He only had 143 home runs. I mean, OPS higher, obviously a batting average higher. He was a 3-time batting champ early on. He was a 350 guy, right? And he ended up with over 300 for his career. I don't know what's going to happen with Sal. Part of it, I think, will have to do, like if he keeps playing, I don't think it's going to help him, honestly. Because like right now, Sal's having just kind of a year, but he's minus in WAR this year. That's not going to help you. If your WAR continues to go down every year you play, that's not the greatest thing in the world for you. You got to sometimes know when it's over. And I don't think, honestly, because Sal's one of those guys, he just wants to play baseball forever as well. Okay? But I don't think he wants to go play anywhere else either. I think he wants to be a Royal forever. But what's the smart thing for the Royals to do? Is he willing to be a DH occasionally, play first
3 days
base
a week
occasionally for half the money he's making now? He might be. I don't know. Generally, that's not the case with players, that they just is like, oh, I'll take a big pay cut or something like that. But he is, a couple years ago, I mean, he had a nice year. The year he hit 20-some homers, he OPS near 800. He's definitely down. This is one of his worst years. Matter of fact, for OPS and OPS plus, it is the worst year of his career. So he's having the worst year of his career. But he's still got 13 home runs. He's still probably going to hit 20 home runs. A lot of guys would love to hit 20 home runs in a major league season. But he's batting .213.
Doesn't help that he's playing nearly every day, too.
Right. Well, that's kind of the thing. He's one of those guys who wants to play every day, and that's when someone has to say, listen, you're not playing every day. But that's the position that they're in with him because, listen, they signed him to the contract. And he's a free agent after this year, so we'll see what ends up happening with him. I don't know. I love Salvi. A lot of players love Salvi. Fans love Salvi. Such a great personality. It's part of their biggest, best memories of the Royals. He got the hit in the wild card game, right? He helped them. He was the MVP of the World Series in 2015. He hit 48 home runs in a year. He's won Gold Gloves. I mean, he's been that guy, and he's been a big part of what they've done, but what they've done is kind of over now. It's probably kind of over for him eventually, and we'll see what happens from there. I do want him to get this record. I think he deserves to get it. He's a bigger home run hitter than George was. It doesn't make me mad if someone's going to hold the record that's not George Brett, because that doesn't matter. I mean, George Brett was unbelievable for a long, long time. But even he knew, I mean, he could have kept playing, but he didn't want to play anymore because he wasn't as good as he was at that point. Of course, he had played 20 years. It's a little bit longer. So we'll see what happens there. I hope Salvi gets it done. They are home in the next 2 days. Hey, hit 2 tonight, right?
You know what? Why not just hit 3 tonight?
Just put it out of its misery tonight. They've got the Giants again, and then they'll be home on Wednesday afternoon. I would rather not have it be a little afternoon game. Although it's not going to be as hot tomorrow, they say. But I don't want it to be on the road up in Detroit.
It would be very fitting if he hit it in Detroit. It would actually be more fitting if he hit it at Target Field when they go back to Minneapolis, because he just has crushed there.
He's killed there, yeah.
When do they play the Twins next in
I don't
Minnesota?
know. It's going to be a little while, maybe. They got to go there again. It's Tigers on the road, and then where do they go after that? Oh, that's the next week. So yeah, next Tuesday. So get it over with before that, though. He's still got like 8 games, six games to go before that. Hit it before then. But that was a nice one for Salvi last night, and hopefully he gets it done. It would be nice if he did it here. We'll see. All right, so we are underway here on The Zone. As I said, we're going to talk a little Missouri Tigers. We're going to talk some Kansas Jayhawks. We're going to talk some K-State Wildcats. That's all coming up today on The Zone. And if you want to, we'll take your phone calls this next hour here, this next 30 minutes or so. I don't care if you call or not, but if you want to, we'll talk to you. If not, we'll talk a little SEC football next here on The Zone.
All right, men, if you're out there and suffering from symptoms that could be related to low testosterone, there is no reason to wait around when Heartland Men's Health can help you. Guys in their early to mid-30s start losing 2 to 3% of their testosterone production every year. It happens gradually. Before you know it, you don't feel like the same man that you did when you were younger. And not only low testosterone for Heartland Men's Health, but they are helping men go further with 4 targeted body composition plans featuring GH peptides, NAD+, GLP-1, PDA, and more, all designed to boost energy, support metabolism, enhance recovery, and accelerate fat loss. Some of those symptoms can be relieved. Higher energy levels, better gains in the gym, sleeping better, waking up feeling more refreshed, no more brain fog, increase in libido, all of these things related to low testosterone. Simply schedule a consult with Heartland Men's Health. They'll do your lab work with you, have your results within 30 minutes. A licensed medical provider will review the results with you, discuss your options, help you make the decision together with the medical team. Cost of the appointment, $99, but that includes the medical consult, T, and that PSA test. And if you sign up for testosterone treatment the day of your appointment, your visit, it's free. Heartland Men's Health, successfully treating men in the Kansas City area. 3 locations to serve you: Overland Park, Independence between Blue Springs and Lee Summit, and North Kansas City. Call them today at 844-447-6600. Tell them you heard about it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. 844-447-6600 or visit heartlandmenshealth.com.
It's very important. It's very important for the region.
Welcome back into the zone. Nice job. Now that's from Diary of a Madman, Ozzy's second solo album, Over the Mountain. I like to educate the young people about things.
I'm learning.
Yeah, you are. And who is Ozzy's guitarist on the first 2 records?
Have we talked about this
We've talked
before?
about this before. Randy Rhoads. And we play the game, how did he die? How did Randy Rhoads die?
Not in a good way.
Well, he died in a plane crash because the tour manager and Randy Rhoads and someone else decided to get into a plane, even though Randy Rhoads was scared of little planes, and they were flying this little plane around trying to buzz Ozzy's tour bus as it was parked. And they got too close and they clipped a tree and the plane crashed and they crashed into this house and Randy Rhoads died. There you go.
So Randy Rhoads died, but what about those people in that house?
Well, nobody died in the house.
Okay.
It was a big kind of mansion house, some big house in Florida or something, and no one got hurt in the house, I don't think. But Randy died, and I think the tour manager guy died. Ozzy did not die because they didn't hit the bus. They hit the trees, So now you know. The more you know. We'll play that with every song. If someone is dead in the band that you play coming back, we'll talk about how they died and whether it was rock and roll enough. I don't know how you categorize a dumb plane crash as rock and rolly or not. Really kind of dumb. Really kind of dumb. All right, we'll hear from Greg Sankey here in a second, but I did say we would take phone calls. If you want to take phone calls, we will talk to our good friend Tommy Moe. What's up, Tommy Moe? How are you today, buddy?
Just fine, Todd. Damn, me over Greg Sankey. Wow.
Well, I would play the Greg Sankey, but you called, and you're Tommy Moe, so you get to jump in front of Greg Sankey.
Thank you very much. Well, prior, Salvador Perez for 15 years, I would think he would be the catcher of his generation, of this 15 years. First off, do you have another catcher over the last 15 years that was better than him behind the dish as a batter, all the metrics combined? Is there a name out there that we are missing?
Your people from St. Louis would say Yadier Molina. That's what
Buster Posey as well. You throw him in there.
Buster too, probably. Yeah, Buster. I think that's kind of comparable.
Okay, very good. Because before he got to 300, heard it here, heard on this radio station, heard it nationally. You get to 300 as a catcher, you're pretty much a shoe-in.
Mm-hmm.
So he's achieved that. And now I'm hearing that, now he's playing. Now, what you said about maybe it's he plays another season or two, his WAR will go down. What was Johnny Bench? I remember Johnny Bench as a great hitter. I know he was a good defensive player. The metrics weren't the metrics back in 1970s, so I don't know what his slash line was.
Johnny Bench's slash line is it's the shiz, okay? He hit 389 home runs, and he OPS'd at over 800 for his career. Okay,
Gotcha.
So he is like the man. His WAR is 75, and Salvi's like 35. So Salvi, Johnny Bench in my mind is I will call that modern. Listen, Yogi Berra's got some great numbers, but Yogi Berra, that's the 40s. Okay, Johnny Bench played in basically the 70s and 80s. He is the benchmark of catchers for me.
Yeah, the gold standard.
He is the gold standard because he was an MVP a couple of times, multiple World Series, hit nearly 400 home runs. He batted like what Salvi batted, maybe 260 something or something like that. But he, let me see, his Gold Gloves, 10 Gold Gloves, 14 All-Stars, 2 MVPs, 2 World Series championships, a World Series MVP, and as I said, 389 on home runs. Buster Posey's under 200 home runs, okay, but his WAR is 45. Yadier Molina his WAR's 41, and let's see, he OPS'd at Yadi at 726. Buster OPS'd at 831, so he's got a nice OPS. He walked a lot. That's the deal. So those are the guys. We'll see. This should be Buster's year too, right? He retired in 21, so yeah, those are the ones.
One thing that Salvador has that all those other guys may or may not have, but I think Salvador does have, is likability. And when it comes to these media guys, and when they vote on it, if they like you and you weren't a jerk, that goes a long ways. Am I right or wrong?
That's true, and we'll see how it goes. Buster's eligibility begins next year, so he will have been retired for 5 full seasons. So we'll watch him, and I believe Yachty would be the next year. But, yeah, Salvi's definitely got that.
That's what it's got for him. So, hey, well, I appreciate you taking me in front of the SEC commissioner. You've made my day, Todd Leabo.
Always, Tommy. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we'll watch those. So next year, Buster, the year after that, Yachty, I think they're in the same kind of category. Like I said, Salvi's nerd stat war is a little lower, but all the rest of stuff is kind of similar. And the likability factor, people love the guy, man.
But to your point, if Salvi keeps playing and that war continues to go down,
that's the problem.
That would hurt his case a lot. But also, Yadier Molina, I don't want to say much better defensively. He was better defensively. And Posey was better offensively. So they kind of both have elements of being more well-rounded than Perez. But I don't think that this is such a ridiculous conversation that you could put them in the same group. Like, they're definitely in the same group. It does come down, though, to does he keep playing? Does the war go down? Does he end up, keep hitting home runs? Like, if he plays next year and hits 20 home runs, but maybe hits, 250 instead of, what is he hitting right now, 213?
213.
Yeah, if he hits 250, that isn't great, but it's better than, if he's hitting 20 to 25 homers.
Yeah, on Baseball Reference, you got the black ink, the Hall of Fame statistics, and like Yadier Molina on batting is a 20. The average Hall of Famer is 144. Okay, so but Hall of Fame monitor on batting, he's like 167. The average Hall of Famer is about 100. Hall of Fame standards 33 for Yachty. Average Hall of Famer 50. So some good, some bad there, and similar for Buster Posey. Hall of Fame statistics batting 38th, average Hall of Famers around 50. And then Salvi's batting is 29, average Hall of Famer around 50. They're all kind of around that area. But then again, I think these Hall of Fame standards have changed over the years because, they let Joe Mauer in. People are like, eventually guys, they're starting to let people in who don't have the crazy numbers because they didn't put the crazy number guys in because they were all on roids, right? There's a whole bunch of guys whose numbers make these look like a joke. Your Barry Bonds, Rafael Palmeiro, Mark McGwire, all these
Sammy
home runs,
Sosa.
Sammy Sosa, these huge numbers. They didn't put A-Rod in yet, right?
No.
A-Rod's numbers are insane.
I don't know if he'll get in with the steroids.
Right. That's the thing. Maybe, and there's been some thought that they're going to be lax, a little more lax on that, and they'll let some of these guys in. But, A-Rod's WAR is 117. 117.
Did 15 of that come from playing the Royals?
Well, plenty of it did. But you're talking about a guy with 3,000 hits, almost 700 home runs, OPSing at 933, black ink galore, and he's not in. And Barry Bonds, even crazier numbers. He's 162. That's 5 times the player of Salvador Perez we're having this argument about, and he ain't in. So, anyway, let's do here a little bit from Greg Sankey. I want to play this one soundbite here for you. We'll play Greg Sankey throughout the day. This is a long chunk, okay? And the question to him, this was at the podium. He talked on the podium, and you've seen, this was yesterday. A lot of these quotes have come around about it being very real that the SEC might break away. There's a lot of things at play here. The government's involved, the Big Ten, the SEC, all these things. The way the guy asked the question was, how real have the conversations been about doing something different than being involved in the NCAA? Here is Commissioner Greg Sankey on that.
So you phrased the question of how real. So I'll take that as like real or not real. So they're real. People have talked about that. They've opined about the frustrations that bring them to the point of saying we should look at something significantly different. I do not believe that is a leverage point. I think that's just honest communication. I would prefer that stay in a meeting room or on a video conference and not be part of the D1 ticker the next morning, but I don't control all of that. Eddie, what I think is important is those comments represent a high level of frustration with the circumstance in which we find ourselves. We have regulated ourselves more aggressively than other colleagues by choice across our league. We've had different academic eligibility restrictions in the past. So we've had different transfer restrictions in the past. So some of what you hear comes out of a culture that we can regulate ourselves. But the frustration that exists is when you go to a meeting 8 years ago and we want to change the volunteer coach rule in a Division I setting, and the Division I membership can't see their way through change, and so that creates risk. I think some of the transition into this 5-year eligibility model, that it happened when it did and the way it did, that magnifies frustration. We went through a college football playoff discussion for years and introduced a 12-team playoff where it just sat because colleagues couldn't move. And they had reasons, but those reasons really didn't resonate. And so understand that beneath the observation is frustration. But I also know the pride with which I spoke of 13 national championships. And there is meaning and value, and I do think a national expectation that we participate in a national organization. But that national organization must function in a healthy manner. Otherwise, that simmering will continue.
A little ominous. The simmering could continue. Here's the thing, and this just makes sense. And it's harder now for the SEC to get things done internally than it was before because it's a bigger league now. You heard him say they would have a coaches meeting, and I saw Kirby Smart talking about this before too. They'd have these meetings, and the coaches be in a meeting, and they all agree on something. Well, that's great. Then they have to take that to the athletic directors and then the CEOs of these schools. All right, that's one thing. Now, if it's the NCAA and you're talking about what was the Power 4 or 5, now Power 4, it's the same number of schools, basically. Now you're talking about, well, now 60-some people have to agree on something, not just 12 like the SEC was back in the day. Now it's hard to get people to agree on anything. And the more people you get into it, they've all got their own reasonings for not wanting to do something. So it gets harder and harder and harder to get these people to agree. And maybe that's where the SEC, I don't know if they will, because there are some government problems here as well. If they go try to break away, that may not fly. Because some state representative or something in some state or a U.S. representative in a state is going to come say you can't do this, and they'll pull the antitrust stuff on them and something, start pulling federal funding. We've seen lots of things happen at the government level now. I think it's not impossible. I think it's pretty unlikely that the SEC is going to would be able, if they even want to, pull off, we're just going to have our own league and have it just be the easiest thing in the world. Funding could get pulled, all kinds of things to happen. But they continue to get asked about these things, and we'll see where that goes. I don't know. It's difficult to figure what they're going to do.
I don't even know how that would work, because if you think about it realistically, part of the reason we love college football is the rivalries. And there are a lot of rivalries in the SEC. There's no doubt about that. But you like watching an SEC Big Ten matchup. You like watching, different, SEC teams in college basketball going to play. And I guess would this just be for football?
This would be everything. If they pulled it out. So yeah, you'd lose some of those things. Now here's the problem: most of these SEC schools don't play, and that's what they're all bitching about right now. They have to have. This is the first year of the 9-year schedule for them, or 9-game league schedule. They've been playing 8 forever. All right, it's easier to make a bowl game if you play 8 league games because it is hard in the SEC, and it's hard. There's no question about that. Playing these league games at these places, it is a tough league. It's the toughest league in sports to get through the league in college
sports. Means more.
It kind of does. It's a silly saying, but it kind of does. So that's hard to do that. Now they're like, well, we've got 9 games. So you told us we were going to have 16 teams in the playoff, and it's okay if we'd have 3 losses, we could get in there. You get to quit crying about that. If they pulled away, it would be probably with the Big Ten. And now you're talking you'd have 30-some teams, basically a little mini NFL, right? But here's the problem. If you do that, these are some great programs you're talking about. You're talking about Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma, Texas, Indiana now, Iowa, Penn State,
Ole Miss,
Florida, all these things that have all been great. Is someone going to be happy rolling into a playoff at 8-4? Yeah, maybe not. So you have to change your expectations. In the NFL, if you make the playoffs at 9-8, you're like, bro, we made the playoffs. It's okay. You know what I mean? That didn't fly at some of these things. So I don't know. First off, I don't know if the government will allow something like that to happen. because they do control the purse strings. We've seen government funding get pulled. This is not athletic stuff. On other things happening in the last year or so, where they're like, "Oh, we're just taking money away for research or this. If you're doing this, and if the
They're
government,
state schools, they can do it.
almost every one of them is a state school. Vanderbilt's not. Northwestern's not. Of those two leagues, right? That's the only two non-state schools. I think that's the two private schools. But they get federal funding too. Okay, there's money out there in whatever. So I don't know what's going to happen with it. I think it's a great thing to write down on a piece of paper. What if we had these 35 schools? How great would it be? Yeah. Okay, that's great. But it's not that easy just to say we're going to do this.
It feels like it's all trending towards one mega conference where it's just there's no more SEC, there's no more Big Ten.
It was just a few years ago. It was the Power 5 and it's the Power 4 because the Pac-12 is gone. It's coming back, sort of, but it doesn't have a seat at this table. So that's all changed. Like I said, it's almost the same number of schools. They've just been put into this. It's kind of moving towards that, but don't hold your breath. It'll change. And the guys making these decisions now may not be at the schools when it happens because it doesn't happen
or at
that
different
fast.
schools.
They could be somewhere else. That's right. All right, Zone rolls on here. Top of the hour, we will talk a little Missouri Tigers with Chris Gervino of the Tiger Network. Welcome back into the zone. Went a little long there. I'm keeping informed of how the show generally goes. You go a little long, so you have just a little 1-minute segment at the end of the hour.
Tradition never dies.
It never dies.
Just carries over.
When we come back, we will have Chris Trevino on from the Tiger Network, talk a little Tigers football and basketball. Missouri was at the SEC Media Days yesterday. We've still got some KU and K-State conversation coming up as well today. Big college day here on the Zone. We did cover the Royals. Chiefs are going to be in camp, sort of. Andy will talk to us on Friday. The camp won't really start, but it's all happening right now in Kansas City, even though nothing's happening because there's no games right now, except the Royals going down. Sporting's playing, too. There's stuff happening.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they came back and lost to St. Louis last week. 3-2, though. Come on. You knew that. Welcome back into the zone. Todd Leabo in for Jason Anderson and Sterling Holmes. It's Tuesday, right? And on this Tuesday, as we work ourselves towards Chiefs camp and football all around the nation as the SEC Media Days are going on. And we're going to talk to Chris Gervino of the Tiger Network now. We're going to talk a little Kansas and Missouri, or Kansas and Kansas State a little bit later. SEC Media, or Big 12 Media Days already happened. SEC Media Days going on right now. Chris, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey, Todd, I'm doing well. Good to hear from you. How are you?
Oh, we're doing great. We're up in Kansas City. You know, the Royals are in last place. The Chiefs didn't make the playoffs last year. You know, what could be better than this, right?
Well, let's get ready for college football then, huh?
I think the Chiefs will be just fine. They had a little...
I think they're okay. Yeah, they've got potential. Yes.
A little hiccup.
Right.
Okay, so we did see Eli Drinkwitz and the guys at SEC Media Days in Tampa yesterday, and it's a 4-day affair at this thing. As you know, the SEC, you've been deeply involved in this forever. It just means more, and so you have to do it bigger and better. What did you make of Eli yesterday as you saw him rolling around and talking about some big issues? That's kind of how it goes down there. You know, that's the big issues. Nine-game SEC deals, expanded playoffs. Eli's always got something to say, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sure does. He's never at a loss for words, but I find him entertaining, and he speaks his mind, and I think, he's more confident than ever in sharing his thoughts and willing to do so. He did say he's learned a lot over the years, too, and done some things he wishes he hadn't done. So, but I think, he's been here now. Gosh, this is 7 years. It's hard to believe.
Crazy, man.
Flies.
Yeah.
It is, and I think second longest tenured head coach at one school in the league already, which is just... shows you it just means more, as you said in the SEC, right? Winning means more. And so, but no, I thought he was entertaining, touched on a lot of issues, as you mentioned. He's for the bigger playoff. I mean, obviously that would help Missouri's chances of getting in. They haven't made it yet. They've had a couple of chances the last couple of years, potentially. Couldn't quite get over the hump in a big game or two each of the last 2 seasons, but they've been almost in striking range, if you will. And of course, that's not good enough for some folks, but I think Coach recognizes with that 9th game in conference play, the records are not going to be as gaudy for most teams as they've already been, because it's another tough game, and now you play a power conference opponent. In Missouri's case, Kansas this year, Illinois coming in the future. So, I love it from a spectator's point of view, or in our job, because now you've got 10 real games of the 12. And it's going to make it more challenging for the teams. But, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? And I think that's going to be really entertaining for fans and worth the big bucks they're paying to see these games.
Yeah, Chris, a lot of times in the last year or so, I've heard plenty of SEC coaches kind of say they were told this was going to be good because if we did this, there would be a 16 or 2014 playoff, and it would be okay to have another loss. And that's not the case this year. Maybe it'll be the case in the future. It's hard to make all of these things happen while the calendar rolls on. I always kind of, they're building the train while it's going down the tracks a lot of times with these issues. For myself, listen, I'm a guy who we all grew up in the old Big 8 where you played everybody. And then in the Big 12, I thought that was the greatest 12 team schedule, where you played everybody in your division, you played the other two, you played half the one, and you played them all, and if you stayed at school for 4 years, you'd play them all, and it was fine. And then when the Big 12 went down to 10, they played just everybody. They played them all. And the SEC has always kind of done it differently. Even back when the SEC wasn't big, you go back and look, it would be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years between when teams would play each other. They've always kind of done it their own way. And now it seems like they're getting forced to play the way everyone else plays, and they don't particularly like it. I don't have a lot of sympathy for these coaches. They all make big money. Go try to win these games. And you're in the SEC. Yeah, it's hard. Try to go coach in the NFL. It's even harder. They're all pro. You know what I mean? It's a tough deal. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for them saying, "Oh, I don't know, man. I want to have a 24-game playoff if I have to play 9 games." It rings hollow with me a little bit. How does it ring with you?
Well, yeah, and I understand that, and sure, I hear that from a lot of folks. And I mean, think about it this way: you could go 6-6 and be bowl eligible, and one of those 6 wins can be against a lesser opponent from a lower division.
The Citadel,
in football, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Missouri's got Arkansas Pine Bluff to start the season on Thursday night. Obviously, that game counts toward their win total and toward bowl eligibility. And it would be that way for any school. All these schools just about are playing a team from a lower level, and it counts as a win. And again, if you get to 500, including that win, you're bowl eligible, and who knows what people think of bowl games anymore. But it is interesting with the playoff, too, and I do think, this year's just 12, obviously, but I do think it's going to go to at least 16 next year. The question is it just going to be 16, which is what the SEC, at least through Commissioner Greg Sankey, would like, or does it go to like 24, which does seem like a lot to me, and that's what the Big Ten has been obviously proposing. So you're right, a lot still to be determined, and meanwhile you're doing things on the fly as all that is up in the air. I do like the fact now that with the 9 conference games for the SEC, they will play everybody. You'll play everybody in 2 years' time, and you'll play everybody home and away within a 4-year window. So, that is getting better finally, because it certainly was, unbalanced, I guess, the schedule, where not everybody was playing everyone else in the league. You had different opponents, and you still have some of that because you're only playing 10 conference games when there are 16 in the league. Thus comes the problem with these bigger conferences. But at least you're home and home with everybody within 4 years' time, and you're playing everybody one place or another within 2 years. So they're getting there, but there's a challenge with these, superpower, supersized conferences.
We're talking to Chris Trevino of the Tiger Network. Let's talk a little bit about the team itself. Eli did give us an update about Ahmad Hardy. Tragic. It could have been really tragic. He got a gunshot wound while back home in the off season, and he appears, I guess they kind of started the clock on him yesterday, where he's going to start doing some things. They just really don't know. They don't have a lot of data on what there is with this particular gunshot wound. It hit a bone, and he's one of the best players Mizzou had last year. What are your anticipation that he is going to, do you think he could be what he was before? I mean, this is something that not a lot of people, there's a lot of data on, I got an MCL. I did this, and I worked back from it. We don't have a lot of data on something like this.
Yeah, that's true. No, I don't know. It'll be interesting, Todd, to see, when practice starts, what he's doing, how involved he is. The signs have been good. The statements from Coach Drinkwitz yesterday I thought were good. I wouldn't put anything past the kid. He's such a hard worker and a great athlete, as we all know from watching him last year from a tiny town in Mississippi. Then, of course, played at Louisiana, transferred to Mizzou, and didn't miss a beat. One of the nation's leading rushers, more than 1,600 yards on the ground, 16 touchdowns. I mean, on a very short list of top running backs in the country, and certainly last year, and I think heading into this year. And one of the other guys, of course, is Kewan Lacey at Ole Miss, who was at Missouri and then transferred to Ole Miss. So they've had some running backs here the last couple of years. But, obviously he's a huge part of their offense. I think they'll get him back, but I don't think anybody knows for sure, when. Maybe it's in time for the season opener. But again, that's Arkansas Pine Bluff. Obviously, they're going to look out for him and his health first and foremost, and get him back as makes the most sense for him. And with the schedule they have ahead of them, the good news is they kept Jamal Roberts. And again, roster retention is so big in this day and age of the transfer portal. Roberts is a running back from St. Louis, was just outstanding as the second option behind Hardy for Missouri last year. I think the two of them combined for about 2,400 yards. Quite possibly the best running back tandem the country will see this coming season. Certainly if you project what they did last year into another year of similar numbers, that would put them right up there. So they feel very good that Roberts is still here and know he's capable. So they do have some depth there, at least, even if Hardy is not full go right at the outset of the season.
Yeah, we'll have to watch and see what that is. It's luckily he's okay. He's at least back trying to play football. That's the important part for Ahmad. Now, quarterback has been the big question, really, kind of Eli's entire time at Mizzou. There was such a good run of kind of having the situation on lockdown with Coach Pingle, and even through Barry Odom when Drew Lock was around. Eli has not quite been able to just nail down the quarterback, and it's gotten harder, I think, because of the transfer portal, where you're looking around elsewhere, and then maybe there's someone there who's on your roster already who should be the guy, but you're always looking somewhere else. And you got to kind of find that thing. New guy this year is Austin Simmons, who had the job last year at Ole Miss and got a little bit hurt, and then he got outshone by Trinidad Chambliss, who took them to the playoff. What do you know about Austin Simmons and how he's kind of fit in so far, because he's been there for a while, went through spring and all that stuff, and how is he fitting in with this team?
Well, really well from what we hear, and again, we'll get out to practice here in a couple of weeks when things get cranked up pretty quickly. But big arm, big left arm, came out of Miami of Florida, was very highly recruited. Of course, went to Ole Miss. They really thought he was the guy. Then he got hurt, as you mentioned, and Trinidad Chambliss took over and never looked back and led them all the way into the college football playoffs. And Missouri will see him, by the way, at Ole Miss this season. But, Simmons feels a void now, and they're hoping that he'll step right in and take over that job. He's been very good communicator, Drinkwitz has said, very bright player, which obviously you'd like at that quarterback spot. And it would be nice to have him healthy this year and have stability, because you're right. It seems like a long time ago, the days of Gary Pinkel, when they had Chase Daniel and Blaine Gabbert, both of whom went to the NFL for many years and were there, 7 years between them, I think, as the starting quarterback. Then Drew Lock, of course, came along after those two and played with Coach Barry Odom. So Drinkwitz has certainly won some games with different quarterbacks. This will be the third starter in 3 years. And again, I said it at the time, and I think now you really appreciate a guy like Brady Cook, who at the time seemed to be underappreciated by many Mizzou fans, but he just kept getting better and better and hung in there despite the hits he took time and again. And, of course, has had a little time with the New York Jets in the NFL. So you really like stability, experience, and consistency at that position. And Austin Simmons, new to the program, but has some experience. And, you're really probably as good as your quarterback, at least if you're trying to get to that next level. And if he can play really well, Missouri could be really good.
Yeah, the weird part about the world today, Chris, is like Brady Cook just grew up wanting to be a Tiger. That's all he wanted. Right. And I don't know if these kids grow up today wanting to be anything other than they just want to get, and I just sound like an old man here, sure, I want to be a Tiger. And then you go there and you're like, maybe I don't now because there's some money somewhere else, and your eye is always wandering. Brady Cook just wanted to play for Mizzou. And there's a lot to be said for that. And listen, it'd be, if Brady Cook had 5-star talent, that would have been the greatest thing in the world if he had all that. And I think you really can get in a spot where you continue to change quarterbacks all the time. It's really hard to strike gold and get it done. Now, we've seen it happen in a couple places, right? Francisco Mendoza, 1 year at Indiana. It's great. Got it done. Won it all. Cam Ward ended up being the number 1 draft pick after he just went. He was on his 3rd school. You can kind of get those things. I don't know if that's something you can bank on happening, though, because it just doesn't seem like every single place it's going to work that way, because nearly every quarterback is going to play at more than one school in their career.
Well, times have changed. I mean, that's right. So based on the climate we're in, it's hard to see that happening as often. Certainly won't be as prevalent, one would think, and you can't really blame the players, I guess, either, because all this money is out there available, which, of course, just was not the case beyond the scholarship several years ago. So it is a changing landscape. And, yeah, you look at most of the starting quarterbacks probably, and many of them, at least in the SEC, even a year ago, calendar year ago, they may not have had any idea where they were going to be this season. And the schools they're at now, and there's a handful of them, of course, across the league, might not even have been in their mind, because they probably weren't sure they were transferring, let alone, welcoming offers from different schools and places. So these are different times, my friend, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think 2 quarterbacks last year in the NFL who got drafted, the draft picks who haven't played yet, the guys who got drafted, played at one school. And that was the Alabama kid who ended up going, and then the North Dakota State guy or something. Every other quarterback who got drafted played at least one other school. And we're going to see that happen. Like, Arch isn't going to play anywhere else, and he's probably going to get drafted this next year. But for the most part, that's just how it's going to be. And we're just, listen, I'm fine with it. It is what it is. You got to just deal with it as it goes. Chris Gerbino is our guest. Chris, 2 weeks ago, I was down at the Big 12 football media days, and I was talking to Gene Taylor, the athletic director at K-State. And I was asking him, they've had, plenty of NIL situations happen. They've spent a lot of money on basketball the last couple of years on, big player here or there. Coleman Hawkins came over, didn't make the tournament. PJ Haggerty came over. They didn't make the tournament. Jerome Tang is now gone. And I said, when you guys go out and talk to these donors who give this money to the collective and all that stuff, are you getting more questions now like, wait a second, we paid $2 million for this kid and we didn't make the tournament. And he said, absolutely. I know this is not your job to go ask these guys, but you're around some of these guys who give money to the school and all that. Are you getting the feeling that everyone is still just all in? They're going to pay whatever it takes to get these players? Or is there some skepticism now? I mean, it was a big deal to get Bo Prabula from Penn State. It didn't work out. He wasn't quite good enough. He got a little hurt. It wasn't what they thought. They didn't know. Or you think some of the donor people are getting a little wary and like, wait a second, how you're asking me for this money and we're not getting exactly what we want out of it? Do you get that feeling down there, or is everyone still like, hey man, whatever it takes, this is the SEC, we have to do this?
Yeah, that's a good question, Todd. I honestly haven't had specific conversations like those with specific donors. Certainly people at that level that would be giving the big money for the big players. But I think it's a really good question, and it's understandable. You wonder how long people will be willing to give this money when it can only be usually for a year, quite frankly. And as Coach Drinkers has said, sometimes the agreements only end up for 6 months because the kid's out of there after a semester, as we've seen here over the last few years. So, I mean, I guess if folks have the resources and the will to do that, that's wonderful. It's hard for me to even think in some ways like that with the amount of money it's taking now to, not just run the athletic departments, but to put a payroll together for said football team or basketball team. I mean, we're talking well into the millions and millions of dollars now for these rosters in the two major sports, not just football where you have so many players, but basketball where you don't nearly have as many players. But because of that, the few players you have can make a huge difference and command great money. So, again, I haven't heard or had anybody come and tell me, that's it, they're out, I can't stand this. I know some people don't like the way it's going now, but I haven't heard of any people just shutting up in terms of their wallets and closing them down and not supporting their school. I think the pull for many of these folks, especially the big donors, is they are so in love with the university and want to see it do well and have success and are willing and frankly generous with their money to the program. They're able and okay to spend it, but it definitely is something that I've thought about and wondered and had people like yourself propose that question to me, and it's just hard to tell, because I think the thing you have to be concerned about too is how many people are there. What is the size of your donor pool that can make a difference at that level? Can you just get so many people on board to the extent they can give, you take care of that? Or can you get those few heavyweight donors to really keep giving at a huge level? Because it's again, the cliche, but it's an arms race, especially in the SEC. My goodness, with some of the budgets and programs they're contending with.
And the problem is, and this is what I've been saying for a little while, they can't all win. I mean, you can all spend all the money.
There's a winner and a loser. Right?
I mean, the Royals have $180 million payroll. They're in last place. I mean, someone's got to be in last place. That's how it goes. Chris Trevino is our guest. I got a couple more quick ones here. I went down to the game a couple years ago, and I watched all the games on TV last year. What does the new end zone project look like now as you've driven by the stadium? I've seen some of the construction camp stuff. How excited are you to have this thing kind of done now, and it won't be kind of a mess like it was last year?
Yeah, it was kind of messy last year. It was an eyesore, if you will, that end of the field, but that's the price, I guess, of progress and success, because you're in the midst of building something. But it's amazing how quickly that's gone up. It'll be ready, for opening day, and that's less than 2 years time. About 20 months, and it looks beautiful from the outside. We've not been in it yet, so I don't know that anybody's really had tours beyond the principal folks directly involved, but they'll start hopefully showing it off in August, right up until the season opener. But it's really, encloses the whole stadium now at both ends. They're still going to keep the M there at that north end zone. And I will say it certainly is not one of the bigger stadiums in the SEC, but it really does look more the part of a big-time stadium, for what that's worth. And again, if you're competitive in this league and want to be, I think it's worth a lot, probably. But the appearance has changed so much. I think the South End Zone project went so well and was so well received, and that's where the offices are, and major meeting rooms and dining hall, strength and conditioning. But this is going to be really, I think, more fan-friendly, almost, exclusively for fans with the suites and the vantage point at the other end. So it looks sharp, and look forward to getting in there and poking around when I get a chance here in a few weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, they had to move the M, but the M's going back.
Right.
So that'll be pretty cool. And the campus has changed so much. I remember going down, I had good buddies of mine who'd lived in Laws Hall, which is now gone. But you could, in the hallway at Laws Hall, you could look inside the stadium and watch a football game because the scoreboard wasn't as big at that north end then. And now, ain't no looking in the stadium anymore. It's enclosed.
Yeah, can't do that now. You're going to have to buy a ticket, my friend.
No more free peeks because that dorm is gone and the stadium is too tall. Speaking of stadiums under construction, the Missouri Tigers will be going to Lawrence, Kansas to renew the rivalry. 2005 was the last time the Tigers played on campus at KU, which is wild because they had those amazing games inside Arrowhead Stadium. And KU is under construction as well, and their east side will not be done for these games. Capacity is going to be only about 30,000 for this game. This will be a little bit wild, but the Jayhawks came down there last year. It was a fun game. Missouri won. As someone who's an old Big 8 guy, how excited are you to have this rivalry back, even if it's just for a couple of years? I know they've got it on the schedule in a few years as well, to have this one back. And are you excited to go to Lawrence for a game that you haven't been to in 21 years?
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. And you make me feel old, but it is what it is. I am who I am. Yeah, to say more than 20 years since I've been there for a football game. I've been certainly over on campus over the years since then and been to basketball games, but looking forward to that. And it is great that Missouri and Kansas is playing again. I mean, how can it not be? And again, I think those of a certain age really appreciate that and have enjoyed that and have the memories and hope to keep new memories coming forward as we go along here. But it's tremendous. It's neat. We're going to be in Kansas City for basketball with, of course, KU and Nebraska as well. I mean, that's really going to be cool to see the Huskers and Coach Fred Hoiberg again. Of course, remember him from Iowa State. So, yeah, we're moving forward in time, but you still get some trips down memory lane, if you will, with some of these opponents coming back into focus, and that's great. And I do look forward to being there in Lawrence and seeing Mizzou KU in football and basketball this season, like the good old days, Todd.
Yeah, exactly. I do not remember this game, but it was 13-3 Kansas. That was a bad football game. Let's hope this game on September 11th, right? It's a Friday night game. Let's hope it's more than 16 points. I'm rooting for that as a fan of
I'm
football.
not a betting man, but I would take the over on that. In this day and age of college football, I think that's probably safe, but you're right. If it's not, may not be pretty for either team.
Maybe a snooze fest for everybody.
Somebody's got to win.
Yeah.
There's a winner and a loser, so somebody will win.
That's right. Hey, Chris, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you down the road. Love listening to you on the broadcast with the Tigers. You let me know exactly what's going on in the game. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, Todd. Good to hear from you.
All right, buddy. That's Chris Gervino of the Tiger Network talking a little Tigers. We will talk some Jayhawks next hour. We will also talk some K-State. We got it all for you here. It's College Day here on The Zone. Welcome back into the zone. Michael Darcy playing Aerosmith. I don't think anyone from Aerosmith's dead. How about that?
Not
That's
yet.
pretty good for a band that started in the early 70s. 5 dudes. Don't believe anyone's dead. Steven Tyler, the singer, had lost his voice at one point and had to cancel some tour things, and I think they were done, but he might have it back a little bit. I think he sang at a couple things. They were supposed to come to Kansas City, kind of like this big farewell thing. Everyone has about 3 or 4 farewell tours.
You have
all
to.
over. And I believe he is can sing a little bit now, but his voice was gone on him. Gone, Steven Tyler.
You know, that makes sense. I don't know if that voice would hold up over time.
Forever. A little rougher when you get older. You got to take care of it. Take care of it. Do you remember when I saw Aerosmith
How would I remember?
1988? You don't remember that? You don't remember that? You weren't alive, were you?
I was not alive.
Epic 2-day affair. We
2-day affair?
Here's what happened. Back-to-back days. First day, Kemper Arena, Aerosmith. I believe it was the Permanent Vacation Tour. And they were the headliner, and Dokken was the opening act. I saw Dokken 3 times. Never wanted to see him. Always an opening act. You don't even know Dokken.
I have no idea who that is.
Don Dokken. George Lynch was his guitarist. And then they had a song. It was called In My Dreams, I think. Anyways, they ended up being the opening, spandexy hair band on a lot of tours. So then the next night, back-to-back nights, at the Municipal Auditorium in downtown, Ted Nugent opening up for Kiss with no makeup. How wild is that?
Wow.
What a 2 nights, a Friday and Saturday in Kansas City, my senior year of high school. Wild times. That's back when Kansas and Missouri used to play each other all the time. You heard Chris Gervino talking about that. Hard to believe it's been 21 years since Kansas hosted Missouri in a football game. Pretty crazy, but that's how it is because they played 4 games at Arrowhead, and then Missouri left the league, and they weren't going to play anymore, and now they finally got back on it. They played last year and this year. They're on the schedule for 31 and 32, I believe. And Eli Drinkwitz got asked yesterday at Big 12, SEC, it just means more, media days about if he would like to see this rivalry continue.
Scheduling is such a unique challenge and deal. I mean, the games in 2030 were scheduled before I even got to Mizzou, so there's not really a way to get out of them. I know we're playing the Illinois game next year, so that's a regional rivalry. It takes 2 to tango. We want to play the game. They got to want to play the game too. I think they do want to. It's just a matter of making it work for both sides. I think there was maybe a window and maybe a 28 or 29, but it just didn't work out. So we'll renew the game as quickly as we can. I know it's good for us. It's good for college football.
So they've got Missouri this year, and he mentioned Illinois. They've got Illinois next year. These things change a lot as well. And then Illinois the year after that, and then Illinois. They have a 3-game deal with Illinois. I think they're talking about next year's Illinois game is a TBD where it's going to be. It's at Illinois in 28, and then at home in 29. So I think they're looking at maybe St. Louis for that one. That's where they play the Bragging Rights basketball game. I don't think St. Louis really has a stadium worth playing this in. The old dome,
I was
a little bit of a dump.
The Battlehawks play.
They better check. I'm serious about this. Better check and make sure the field is okay. I know the Battlehawks play at that dome. Oof.
These kids make more money than the
They do.
Battlehawks players
They
do.
all make more money than the Battlehawks. Listen, maybe they'll take that thing to Kansas City. Now, that doesn't make sense because it's not in between. Maybe they'll take it to Chicago. You know what I mean? I mean, they could do something like that. But it has not been set yet. And then in 30, they're playing Colorado. My prediction, that will not be Deion Sanders versus Eli Drinkwitz.
I think both will probably be gone.
Then they go to Colorado, and then they've got Kansas in 31. So that's 2 Power 4s in 1 year. But they've also got 2 other non-cons on there. That will not be happening. Maybe they're hopeful that there will be back to 8 conference games in the SEC. Something's leaving that schedule. At Kansas in 32, and then they've got and Illinois again for 3 games in 33, 34, and 35. So they've got Illinois 6 times on the schedule. And that's kind of like we don't think about that as much because we're not in St. Louis, but that's their deal over there. If you're from St. Louis, Illinois is just down the road. Mizzou's just down the road. We'll see where that goes. I love having these games. I'll never forget I'm older than you, Michael. Going out to a press conference, I think this was it might have been 2006 or early 2007 when they first announced they were moving the KUMU game to Arrowhead. And I remember walking out of that thing, and I talked to Mike Alden, the athletic director. We were just out in the parking lot. I said, "Can you guys sell all these tickets?" And because at the time, I just told you about the 2005 game. It was 13-3. These were not,
they were barn burners.
They weren't top, 10 teams, but you could tell they were both getting a little bit better. Mark Mangino was getting his footing. Gary Pinkel was getting his footing. And so in 2006, they were both better teams. And in 2007, we got like 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, whatever poll you were looking at. And that was one of the craziest nights in Arrowhead history. That's including Chiefs games and everything. That's including all that, because it was about 50-50-ish in the stadium for that game. And it was a wild game, and so much was online. It was awesome. Now, the next year wasn't quite as awesome because it didn't mean as much. Kansas ended up winning the game on a last-second play. Missouri was the better team. They were already in the Big 12 title game. The year after that, Kansas was falling apart. Wasn't quite as good. The year after that, and then Missouri was gone, and the game was just gone. And Kansas didn't want to play anymore. Bill Self had basically said, we're not playing that school, and that kind of went through the entire athletic department. So we finally got the game back. I thought the game was awesome last year that it happened. I think it's awesome it's happening this year. I wish the Kansas Stadium was done when they play, but it's not going to be done when they play. You want a little fuel to the fire? Let's go ahead and do it here. Norm Stewart, the old basketball coach at Mizzou, was well known for not ever wanting to spend $1 in Kansas. When they would come, they wouldn't stay in Lawrence. They would stay on the Missouri side, and he wouldn't spend any money. It was his fun joke he always had with, I'm not giving any money to Kansas. Well, Eli, this was not on the podium, okay? This was not in front of a room of 100 and some, media members. This was on a radio show later. Let's go ahead and start some trouble. Let's start throwing stones between Kansas and Missouri. Eli's ready for that.
It's very important. It's very important for the region. It's very important for us to continue to make investments in the sport. I think anytime you're continually asking fans to donate, you better have something that causes them to invoke that emotion. And when you talk about the University of Kansas, what's the best thing that comes out of the state of Kansas? I-70, okay? All right. And what do you call a good-looking girl in Kansas? A tourist, okay? So just so we're on the same page, it's important that you have rivalries, and it's important that you play those. And our guys understand that's a big-time game for us, and it's a big-time game. I mean, this thing goes all the way back to the 1800s, and people lost their lives in the burning of Kansas. They lost their lives in some of these things. So it's important how this thing turns out.
Eli, I like the jokes, and then he got serious about the Civil War stuff. So he's talking to the Missouri fans there. But those comments probably aren't going to sit real well with some Kansas people. But that's the fun of it, man. That's what rivalries are supposed to be.
And this rivalry just means more. I mean, it just means more. But it truly does. I mean, it goes back all the way to the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't Kansas State, where they're just in-state rivalries where they both hate each other. No, this has real historical significance behind it, and he was kind of poking fun at it at the end. But it is interesting that was the history that he wanted to talk about. But
well, it is what it is. You're 24.
Other history is not so good for them.
You're only 24?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't remember this really.
I wouldn't have.
No, you don't remember what this was. I mean, it was blood sport. And even though most times the teams weren't great, in football they rarely were both good. It really only happened a couple of times. And in basketball, there were many times they were both good. But that was well before you were born, and you'd probably
were good in the middle to late 2000s, like 2008 to 2012. Yeah. Both teams were pretty good.
You don't remember those things, though.
I do.
Kind of. You're a young boy. You remember some of it. There was some good stuff there. And it was a shame
knowing that I did not like
That's
Missouri.
Right, because you get taught that. That's the way it works. And that's what college football is supposed to be. And that's what we kind of have lost when we move all these leagues around. Because those things didn't happen in 2 years. The SEC is going through this right now. And the Big 12 is going through it right now. They're trying to create rivalries. Like they told Missouri, your rival is Arkansas. When they made a Battle Lines trophy. When they got in the league, they said, this is who you're playing at the end of the year. This is your rival. Okay, I guess it'll be a rivalry. You can't just have that happen in 2 seconds, so it takes a while to make a rivalry. And now they've added some more teams. And now, well, okay, maybe Arkansas is not your rival. Now they're not playing at the end of the year, okay? You mess all these things up when you go through this. And if they don't allow a league to stay together for 20 years, you can't make these rivalries. I mean, you just can't make them overnight. So that's why I'm glad they're playing some of these games again. Listen, I went to Oklahoma. There were great rivals in the Big 12 or the Big 8 when I was a kid. It was Nebraska, and they always played Texas in the non-con. So you had a couple of those, and you always played Oklahoma State. And it turned out to be great rivalries in basketball and football against Missouri and K-State and Kansas. And it was always great. And then, all right, here's the deal. We're going to make the league different. And they brought Texas into the league. All right, now it even meant more because it was a league game. And you still played Nebraska, and you still played all these, and it was great. And then now it all went away, and it's like, all right, now you have to hate West Virginia. Okay. How? How's that going to work out?
Put them in there.
Put them in. We're supposed to get all fired up about this? And that lasted for a while. Then Oklahoma turned tail. Well, they turned, whatever they did. Followed Texas to the SEC. Okay, well, now you get to play Missouri again. For me, that still meant something. For a 22-year-old kid at Oklahoma, they don't remember.
They don't know. They don't care. They weren't. I mean, a lot of students nowadays will go from out of state. Like there's more out of state.
They're just going to party or whatever. They
don't care.
Just different. It's just a different thing, and I think that's what's lost in some of these things, and that's too bad, because that was the really fun part. When I was in school, we would go. It was a weird scheduling glitch that happened. For some reason, Oklahoma played Missouri 3 times in 4 years at Columbia, because there was something they found in the 1920s or something. They had to fix it and make it right. So we ended up having, and Kansas came to Norman 3 times in 4 years. So it was a weird thing. So every one of those games I went up to. My friends went there. My girlfriend, now my wife, went there. So we would go up and go to the games because it was close enough to do that. You can't go watch these things now as a kid. Now that it's a long ways away, I was a little spoiled. Oklahoma was kind of in the middle-ish enough. You know, I didn't drive out to Colorado, but you could go.
You can make the trek.
You can make the trek.
I drove to West Virginia my junior year to cover
it. It's insanity, though.
That was like 14 hours.
So far.
It was a long drive.
If you're in the Big 12 now and you're at BYU and you're playing Central Florida, forget about it. You're not going to that.
Or even, you said
even
UCF.
BYU to Iowa State. I mean,
it's a distance. It's a trek.
It's a trek.
And it's funny you mentioned the rivalry, and college football for the last decade has been all about making the next dollar.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, rivalries have not been taken into account when thinking about how to make that next dollar. Because if you put KU Missouri at Arrowhead, people are going to sell it out. If you
I don't know. They got to be good. But, yes, they'll sell plenty of tickets.
I think they would probably sell close out because they haven't played in a while.
Yeah, hadn't played in a while. But, yeah, you're right. But I still think the game should be on campus as opposed to that. But one of the things, now the SEC's trying to fix it. Now they've got 9 games, and they're saying, here you've got these permanent 3 you're going to play, and then you're going to rotate through the others. But even when they did that, you can't really do it. So they gave Oklahoma, Texas, and Missouri, and that makes some sense. They played Texas forever, haven't always been in the league. They had a 100-year history with Missouri. That's cool. And then they said, it's you and Ole Miss. Okay, so how many times have Ole Miss and Oklahoma played?
In the last how long?
For the history of the schools.
For the history of the schools.
History of the schools.
I'll say under 10.
They played 2 times in the league. That's the last 2 years. And they played once in a bowl game in 1998. 3 times. And they said, now this is your permanent rival. And the Ole Miss people are like, what is that our permanent rival for? It should have been probably A&M, Texas, Missouri, and Oklahoma in a little thing. But they didn't. Or they could have been Arkansas. At least Arkansas and Oklahoma border each other. They didn't play as much as they should have. Whatever. But it's hard to just create these and say, let's make this whole thing work, because it has to work with all of them. And they're trying to preserve. They want Auburn and Georgia to play every year. They want Alabama and Tennessee to play. They want these things to kind of be that way, but you can't make it all work.
And you can't force rivalries. I think that's the biggest thing. You can't just say, okay, OU, now your biggest rival is going to be Ole Miss, because it just doesn't work. There's not a long-standing history of, I don't like this school. So
doesn't work.
You could try to for the TV dollars, but I don't think we have to overcomplicate the wheel here.
And then they'll switch it in 5 years anyway. And they'll change
Exactly.
it, so it doesn't really matter. It's wild.
When OU's in the Pac-12, we'll just have to.
They were in the Pac-12 once. They almost were there. That was one of the things in 2010. It was all going down. Oklahoma, Texas, OSU, and Tech were going to the Pac-12. That was the guy out there's big thing. That was a story for about a week. That's what was going to happen. Then it didn't end up happening. All right, we're rolling on the zone. We're going to talk a little KU at the top of the hour, then K-State coming up a little bit later. Welcome back into the zone. We did it again.
It's
Short
the zone.
segment. We got it done. Ate my lunch during that break. It got cold on me.
Really?
It was already not great looking to start with. Cooked that pork chop a little too long.
You know, your lunch looked fine to me.
I plated it up nice. Made it look good.
You know, sometimes you can try to plate it up nice, but at the end of the day, it's all going to the same place.
I got a little Darcy problem there. You overcook your hamburger sometimes. I cooked that pork chop a little much last night. It was good last night. The reheat, a little tough.
See, you can overcook meat, but you can't overcook pork. I think you can overcook ground beef and it's eatable.
Yeah,
edible.
pork, it gets a little tough. I got her done.
Pork's tough.
We're not going to talk about how you said eatable.
Yep, nope. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen again. Put that in the cuts on Friday. Welcome back into the zone. Todd Leabo in for Jason Anderson. Sterling Holmes. Michael Darcy is here. We got an intern back there too, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Which one's that?
Meyer.
Meyer? That's a first name, Meyer?
First name Meyer.
What's Meyer's last name? He didn't want to
Permort.
Say again?
Meyer Permort.
That sounds very fancy.
It's very proper.
Sounds like, is your name Meyer Permort the Fourth or something?
He said no.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. We're going to talk to Matt Tate, but we'll be just a little bit here. He's driving, so we'll get him when we're done. I want to play a soundbite that will make you happy, Michael Darcy, as a Chiefs man who YouTubes and vlog. What do you say you do about the Chiefs?
I have a podcast.
You have a podcast. A big video podcast.
Video podcast.
Video podcast. People want to see
form.
you. You see you on this. They can see you on there. It's a video podcast. What's your YouTube channel?
It's KC Sports Report, Leabo.
KC Sports Report. You can check Michael out on there. We love the Chiefs. You love the Chiefs. I love Oklahoma. And I love this guy the Chiefs drafted in R. Mason Thomas. So Brent Venables was at Media Day yesterday talking about his football team, trying to get back to the college football playoff, which they went to last year. But someone asked him about R. Mason Thomas and what the Chiefs have in him.
That was a great pick. he's gonna fit in tremendously well with Spags' defense. We're very similar in the multiplicity and the ways that you can use our Mason. He's a fantastic football player. He's incredibly explosive, one of the most explosive players that we've coached. He's got tremendous instincts at rushing the passer, but he's not just a pass rusher. He's a physical guy that plays much bigger than his stature, and he can play the run, set hard edges. But he cares about his teammates. He's a selfless guy. He's going to help build on the wonderful culture that Coach Reed and that staff has already established in Kansas City. But just going to be a great fit. Great humility, great mama. He's the only boy. He's got 4 sisters, and he's a mama's boy. But man, he is a savage on game day.
You like a savage on game day?
I like that a lot.
You like that talk from BV? Brent Venables has had a lot of really good defensive players in his career as a defensive coordinator. He was the defensive coordinator for 10-plus years at Oklahoma, and they put some really good players in the league. And then he went to Clemson, and they put some really good defensive players in the league at Clemson. And then he's been back at Oklahoma as the head coach and defensive coordinator. He's been calling them. He went back and started calling the defense last year, and it's no surprise they were much better on defense last year. And he likes R. Mason Thomas. A lot of people thought when they drafted him, well, this isn't exactly a Spags-type size guy. But I remember asking Spags that in minicamp, and he's like,
scoffed at you.
He's like, what is that? I said, well, I'm just telling you what these people say. It's not a Spag. Because everyone on draft night in that room was like, oh, I don't know about this. He's not 6'5", whatever. But he's a football player. Would you like to have a savage on game day?
I absolutely would love to have a savage on game day.
Sounds like you got it, buddy.
I think that the interesting thing that Venables said is that he's stout in the running game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is going to be the deciding factor if R. Mason Thomas sees the field, because at least in the offseason, we've talked about how the Chiefs are going to maybe have a hybrid edge rusher too, with Ashton Gelati playing first and second down and bringing in R. Mason Thomas on the money down on third down, because he is so fast and explosive off the line. So you've got your guy that can get to the quarterback, but you've also got a guy that can stop the run on first and second down in Ashton Gelati. So if R. Mason Thomas is able to be a guy that can play the run at some point his rookie year, I'm not expecting him to come in right away and be a 3-down edge, but if he could get those reps later on in the season where he's starting to blossom into being a more every down pass rusher, then you feel like you have that side at least figured out for the next couple of years.
Yeah. I remember when they drafted him on draft night, I said, well, this is a guy who makes plays at the end of games. And you might watch a game and say, I haven't seen that guy do much. And all of a sudden, it's the fourth quarter and it's third down, and there he is getting a sack. And the Chiefs have not been making those plays. It's certainly last year. Nobody was making those plays. I mean, Chris Jones would come up with some big plays in his career. obviously in the short time Frank Clark was here, he would make those kind of plays, and they have not had someone doing that. I don't know if he's going to be the guy who does it all the time, but I think he's got the ability to make those kind of plays that close games out and do that, because they just couldn't get off the field at times last year when they needed to, and they need to have some of that stuff. So I liked the pick because I like the player, because I watched him play a lot. Spags will make things work, and you heard Venables. He watches these things closer than I mean, as far as like defense and what they do. And I think Spags is probably, I don't want to sound like some guy who thinks he knows what he's talking about on lining up on defense, but what Venables did this last year is like they don't play the same defense every down. They were doing lots of things, and I think Spags is maybe morphing into that. The longer you go, you can't just say, all right, I need a 6'5", arm
Go
length
put your
of
hand in the
whatever
dirt and just go.
and go do this. They have to sometimes let's run with 2 linebackers or 3 linebackers or whatever and just kind of go around doing it. It's a multiple, they call it. We'll see. Brent Venables knows more about that than me, and I think he watches a lot of stuff, and he said that they kind of do some similar things to Kansas City, so maybe he'll fit. Let's hope he does.
Is there any concern about his weight? That was one thing that we were talking about once they drafted him. Is Spags going to make him put on 10 to 15 pounds to be a little bit bulkier, or do you want to keep him at his current size? I think he's 240, 250.
Here's the thing. If you can play like you're 270 at 240, if you're strong enough to do that, I think they'll be fine with it. That's kind of what happened last year. They were, should Omar Norman like get heavier? Should he not get heavier? You know what I mean? So we're watching that with our own eyeballs with Josh Simmons, who's running around looking like he weighed about 275 pounds to me, and that may not work. But if you can be lean and be strong enough, then maybe you can play heavier than you are. Maybe that'll happen with R. Mason Thomas. We haven't asked that specific weight question. Maybe that'll be a thing early in camp. Do you have this guy when they actually get to see him? Because everything we watched in off-season, the OTAs and all that stuff, it's not real football. They're
They're
really
just out
doing
there
anything.
for cardio.
I want to watch when they get up to camp the one-on-ones, because that's a full contact drill when they're doing the one-on-ones, and they will have R. Mason Thomas going up against Josh Simmons. That's what you want to see. And there'll be 2-3 reps. They'll rotate them through. That's the best part of watching camp up there for me. And that's when you'll find out if 249 is enough, or you got to be a little bit bigger. I don't know.
When you also don't want to make him gain weight and zap that explosiveness that got him drafted at pick 40.
Right.
Because if you make him, he's 249. If you make him 260 and he's slower,
yeah,
then you're doing more harm than good. I mean, my biggest fear is that they look at R. Mason Thomas and say, he's got very good traits to be an explosive edge rusher, but he's not sufficient enough in the run, so we want to make him a little bit bulkier so he's better at stopping the run, but then that makes him a worse pass rusher. The Chiefs have too many guys that can stop the run and not enough guys that can actually put the quarterback's butt on the ground.
Mm-hmm. They did not do that last year. And they need to. Big time. What were they, 20 sacks less than 2 years before that or something? They were 30-something. Yeah, it was 50-something a few years ago. Then it just kept getting worse and worse. So they got to find a way. They got to find a way to do it. Here's what I think we should do. We're going to talk to Matt Tate in a second, but I know when I talk to Matt, we talk for a long time. I think it's prudent that we take a quick break. We'll do that, and then we'll call Matt. That way we don't get jammed up at the end of the hour like we do. So we're going to talk to Matt Tate about the Kansas Jayhawks coming up next here on The Zone. Welcome back into the zone. I don't know this song. What is this?
This is what we call a generic bed.
Okay, I was going to say, you played some generic bed. I don't know if the guy who produces generic bed is dead or not, so we can't play the game.
He's dead to us.
Maybe so. I'm Todd Leabo. Could have been a computer. In for Jason Anderson and Sterling Holmes. We're talking college sports all day today because that's what I want to do. Damn it. And we're going to do it. So we're going to talk to our good friend Matt Tate, covers the Kansas Jayhawks from Wave the Wheat. Matt, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Doing fantastic. We're watching SEC Media Days go by. We had Big 12 Media Days a couple weeks ago, and we are getting closer. We've got the basketball tournament tonight. We've got alums from Kansas and Kansas State playing. It's basketball season. It's college sports season all the time, right?
I think so. I was going to ask you how much Oklahoma College World Series champions gear you got.
I have a championship shirt that I did buy. I was up there at the title game, and I bought a shirt, and I almost wore it today. But I knew we were going to be on this stream, and I didn't want people saying, "Oh, you wearing your shirt?" Whatever. So I got
They were awesome.
a shirt.
That was so fun, man. What a great team, and obviously KU's run was incredible too. But they couldn't both advance. Once KU bowed out, Oklahoma following them in Omaha. I mean, it was unbelievable. That was such a fun run and an incredible team, and for KU to be a part of it too was cool. So yeah, I was thinking of you a lot, and I was hoping that you partook in some gear because you deserve it.
I did. I went up there for the Monday night championship final game.
Perfect.
And it was a long day because I get up on Monday mornings and I do New Day with Steven. So I'm up at like 4:45. And I had kind of told them, oh, yeah, sure, I'll go to the title game if it goes all the way to Monday. I was rooting so hard for them to win on Sunday. So I didn't have to, actually go up there because it was going to be a long day. But I did it, and up and back. And I got home at 1-something. That was a long day, but well worth it. It would have been really bad to have driven all the way up there and watched them lose. That would have been a tough drive home. But that's what the beauty of sports is, Matt. I mean, that's what we do, right? You lay your heart on the line for something, and half the teams win and half of them lose, and it stinks. I've been to some big games where I made a trip and watched the team lose, and it's no fun going home.
No, it's not. I went to the AFC Championship game last year, and it was tough because it was a last minute sort of thing. I got tickets from a buddy of my dad's, and a friend of mine, and we hopped in the car and we were racing a snowstorm to get across Kansas, and at that
then
point,
another snowstorm came up during the game.
Exactly, and it was it was one of those things where it was like, well, Stidham's playing, so we have an excuse if we don't win the game.
Right.
Still should have won the game, but it was there, and so for me, as diehard a Broncos fan as I am, it was more about just that experience and being able to be there, and then of course sitting through a blizzard watching the game, an AFC Championship game. I mean, it was just that was awesome. So that was one of those very, very rare moments where you do make the trip and you make the drive and your team comes up short and you still had fun.
Yeah,
usually
sure.
ruins it, no question. But that was super cool. It was I say once in a lifetime because I'm 48 years old and I've never been to one yet. And they've been in plenty, but yeah, I hope to go to another one. Even still, it was great seats and just the way it all went down. It was. I think I found out Wednesday that I was going. So it was once in a lifetime in that way for sure.
I know that. Listen, humble brag. I've gotten to cover a lot of things, as you have too. You've been to Final Fours and all that stuff. I've gotten to do that. So I've covered some Super Bowls. And it's a very recent thing in my career because the Chiefs were not good enough to do that for a long time.
Right.
And it was a rough scene. The last Super Bowl down in New Orleans, I stayed down. I was there for 8 days, stayed through the weekend, three-peat possibility, and the death march that game was, getting boat raced by Philadelphia, and then going to the airport the next morning, I felt bad for myself that I'd been away from home for all that time and all that.
Right.
And then had to sit and try to talk to these guys after they just lost the biggest game of their life and everything. That's not the fun part of the job part of it either. But I felt way worse for all the Chiefs fans at the airport on that Monday morning who had spent maybe tens of thousands of dollars to go do it. I didn't have to spend the money because it was work. and I didn't have to buy a ticket that cost $5,000-$6,000. So that I felt a lot worse for them. And then the Philadelphia fans were in the airport too. They were all there together. Not a great scene. Not a great scene. No.
Well, and Philly fans are so kind.
Oh, so kind. Yeah, some of the gates were near each other. They were all going home, and the Chiefs fans were going home.
That's bad. You got to move those gates.
Yeah, they got to get them apart. They have to.
Terminal. Yeah.
Matt Tate is our guest, and since you were talking about baseball, I just saw this yesterday. Right, Kansas baseball is going to play at the Field of Dreams. What do you know about how that came together?
Yeah, I really don't know. I don't think they've done it a ton with the college teams. So, it'll be a fall ball game, and I'm not even sure if they may be the first two college teams to play there. But, it won't count on the record, obviously, because it'll be in the fall, October 10th. But what an opportunity, and what a cool thing. And it's also really cool that it's another power conference program, so it'll be a good game. My guess is, for one, it's a fall game, so they'd like to try to get a lot of guys in, right? And just they're fitting lineups together, and they're trying to figure out who's winning jobs and where guys fit and all of that stuff. And so they're going to play a lot of guys. But beyond that, I would imagine they'll make sure they play even more than they normally would, just so everybody gets a chance to be a part of that game and play an inning or two out there on that field and in such an iconic spot. So, I think it's awesome. I know Major League Baseball's done it with a few teams, and they're doing it again later this year. So I think the idea from the MLB standpoint is to do more of that as the years roll on and have a few games a year, maybe even there. The White Sox and Yankees played there back in 2021, and the Cubs and Reds played there the following year. So, look, man, even those guys, right? Even the Yankees players on the 2021 team, they made it. They play in New York City for the Yankees, right? Like, it doesn't get much bigger than that. But I bet even those guys with their big contracts and their big, names and all of that stuff, I bet even those guys were in awe of going and playing in an environment like that. So it'll be really, really cool. For KU to be a part of that and an awesome experience. I mean, they played a regular season game last year against Creighton at Omaha, where the College World Series was, and so obviously the goal then was, well, hey, we got to see it, now let's come back, and they got close, but that in and of itself was cool, and as cool as that stadium is, and what they do in Omaha with the College World Series. It's not the Field of Dreams, man. I mean, it's close, and they're totally different. But if you were talking about Rosenblatt still, I might give the edge to Omaha. But this is just a totally cool experience for these guys, and I'm sure they'll eat it up.
For sure, that should be fun. We are talking to Matt Tate about the Kansas Jayhawks, and just had Big 12 Media Day a couple weeks ago, and first time in 10 years that Jalen Daniels wasn't down there for Kansas. It was a weird thing. Let's start there. I talked to Coach Leipold down there. They don't need to tell you who the quarterback is just yet. He's going to watch this thing go down. How do you think it will shake out at quarterback? Because that's always the biggest question heading into fall for college football teams.
Yeah, it really is, and it's the first time around here that we've had that question in a long time. When I was the beat guy for KU football way back when, it was almost every year in the post Todd Reesing era. It was every year it was some kind of quarterback battle, and they weren't always that exciting. I mean, the fans had to kind of, well, okay, I guess it's going to be one of these guys. I guess we'll pay attention, but none of them are Todd Reesing, so this sucks. I mean, that was kind of the fan perspective of it then. This year's different because it's a couple of guys they know. They've seen them play a little bit. They know their names. I don't know where the fans stand in this one. I would guess that a lot of them are hoping that Isaiah Marshall can win the job because he's got a little bit more playmaker potential to him. And he's certainly different than Jalen Daniels, but if you're saying one is closer than the other, it would be him. But man, Cole Ballard, an absolute leader. He is as bright as they come. He is going to be more prepared than anyone on that team. He knows how to do it. He knows how to lead. He'll be ready if it is him. And if you made me guess today, I would probably guess that it is Cole. I think what it's going to come down to, and they've said this. This isn't me just throwing a something at the wall and seeing if it sticks. I mean, they've said this in the spring, and they said it again at Big 12 Media Day. It's going to be about consistency. Which of the two is the more consistent player? Which of the two makes the fewer mistakes, which is part of consistency? And which guy do they feel they can saddle up and he can move their offense down the field and put up points? And so I don't think it's decided yet. I think they've planned all along to take this thing into the fall and preseason camp and let it play out there. So I think, we're still a few weeks away from knowing, obviously, and they're a few weeks away from knowing. But if Isaiah Marshall had a great summer and shows up and is by far the most consistent guy over 4 weeks in August, they'll probably give him the job. If he's not, and if it's close, maybe Cole Ballard's intangibles put him ahead a little bit because he is a terrific, terrific leader, and he's been viewed as that since he was a freshman even. I mean, people were talking about that when he wasn't even playing. And of course, he did start a couple of games as a freshman and all of that. So, I understand that it's not super exciting for people when you're coming off the Jalen Daniels era, just like it wasn't exciting for people after Todd Reesing played the position. But I think both guys have enough talent to be successful and to make the offense an offense that is efficient. And I think when you combine those two things with the fact that Andy Kotelnicki's back as your OC, some of the onus falls on him right there. I mean, it's like, okay, one of these guys is your guy. Now scheme it up, make him look good, and make the offense go. And Andy would take that in a second. I mean, that's his job. That's why he's paid what he's paid, and that's what he's good at. So, bottom line, I think it's I think both guys could factor into it. I don't think they'll do a two quarterback system or anything like that, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Cole wins the job, but they still find a way to play Isaiah more than we've seen them play him in the past, in whatever packages or however they want to use him. So, and then of course you have the injury thing. I mean, we've seen that happen at a lot of places, pro, college, whatever. You got to have a couple guys that are ready at least. Sometimes you need three. So they're all locked in and preparing as if they're going to be a huge part of this thing, and they should be.
The crazy thing, Matt, is, Cole has been there for years. I mean, remember, he played big snaps in that K-State game when he was a freshman. Kotelnicki was calling the plays back then. So they do have, some more history together, that they know each other a little bit more. And Ballard played all right in that game. A couple bad picks, but what a tough spot to put a kid in.
Oh, my gosh.
Unbelievable spot. He never really played. It was wild. And he hasn't really gotten to play much since then because he's been waiting. But he's also stuck around. He's been loyal to the program, all those kind of things. I don't know what that means, if it means anything at all. You have to be able to play. But I've been saying a lot that I love guys who care about the program and stick around and don't always go looking for somewhere else to play.
No question about it. And look, like, he wasn't the reason they lost that game by any means. He played well enough that day, especially all things considered. Former walk-on, true freshman, all of that stuff, right? Like, he played well enough for them to win, and they just didn't get it done. So, if it's him, you look at all these rankings wherever you see them on X or whatever, and I mean, I think everybody, almost everyone I've seen, has the KU quarterback at the bottom of the Big 12, right? If you're ranking the quarterbacks in this conference, Cole Ballard or Isaiah Marshall, one of them is
fill in the blank, yeah.
And they're almost all 16th, and that's okay. Sometimes that's your reality. It's up to them to go prove people wrong, and I know both guys are wired that way. They would love to prove people wrong, but more important than that, they would love for Kansas to win and for them to be a part of it, and some of the reason that Kansas wins. So, I think you nailed it too. I mean, with the history that Kotelnicki has and understanding Cole. Of course, he was around when they were recruiting Isaiah too, so it's not completely foreign there at all. And Andy's good at what he does, and I could definitely see him doing some really cool stuff. It wouldn't shock me at all if they both are on the field at times. He's not afraid to put 3 or 4 tight ends out there at times. And so I think that'll be cool. One thing that they talked about in the spring, I talked to both of those quarterbacks a couple of times, and you know, one of the things that they talked about that they appreciated with Kotelnicki coming back was it wasn't just, okay, Andy's back, everybody remember what we did 3 years ago, okay, ready, go. You know, it wasn't that at all. It was Andy Kotelnicki coming back and him sort of folding himself into the current state of KU football and its offense and its roster and its personnel and its you know, language that it uses and terminology and things like that. It wasn't everybody's got to do it Andy's way now because he's back. It was the opposite. It was he's going to learn a lot of what we've been doing and what we call things now, and then he's going to make it work. And that's great. I mean, you know, you got however many kids, 50 kids that play offense for you that know it one way, and you could make all 50 of those kids learn it different, or you could make the one coach who's a grown man learn it different. And so pretty cool to hear that, and it was cool how much they appreciated that, for sure.
We are talking to Matt Tate about Kansas, and Kotelnicki, I think, is an interesting part of this. It's just real simple to say they didn't score as many points when he was gone, right? Because that's true. They were 8, 9, 10 points less a game. Instead of being a top 20 scoring offense, more in the lower third, 70th, 80th, something like that in the country, instead of being like 20th or 17th. And they still had Jalen Daniels and still had Devin Neal for one of those years, all those kind of really good weapons. Is it that simple? Was he that good of a coordinator? And are they lucky to have him back because Penn State's insane and had to fire everybody in the middle of the year?
Yeah, I think they are lucky to have him back. I was shocked. I'll be honest. I didn't. He wants to be a head coach someday, and he will be. And it may be here. Who knows? But I was a little surprised that I thought he might move on from there to some sort of mid-major type head coaching gig. And I know he's had over the last several years, he's had plenty of opportunities to do something like that if he wanted to, and talked about it a couple of times, and he found out that this is the right fit for him again. And part of it's Kansas, part of it's Lawrence, part of it's his family was really happy here when they were here, and so that's a cool thing too. But I do think in some ways it could be as simple as what you just said, and I'll tell you one way that I really think it'll stand out is, if you remember last year, KU went 5-7, and there were at least 3 games where they had the lead late or should have won the game, or however you want to phrase it, and didn't get it done. And some of that was play calling and execution inside the final 5 minutes of the game, or whatever it might be. I don't. It's not a knock on Jim Zabrowski, who did the job last year. It's more of a statement about how much Lance Leipold trusts Andy Kotelnicki and has done it with this for so long. And so in those situations, when they're trying to figure out, how do we close this game out? How do we close this game out? What do we do? What do we do? Lance is on the headset and he's talking to Andy, and Andy says, "I got it, coach. Don't worry about it." And that trust goes a long way, because when Lance hears that, he goes, "Okay, my guy's got it. Good. Now I can go focus on this and make sure this part of our operations running so we can close the game out." He's got the offense. And so the trust factor, I think, is huge. And of course, for that to matter this year, they got to be in that same position. And that could be tough with the schedule. They don't have a friendly schedule by any means. But if they are in that position, I think that's where, as much as all the bells and whistles of pre-snap motion and all that stuff and all the wild gimmicky kind of plays that Andy's known for, that stuff's all coming back, and it should be a lot of fun to watch and probably pretty effective. But I think that trust part of it could be the most important part of having him back.
Yeah, for sure. You've got that comfort factor, and I'm sure he's welcome back with open arms. No question about that. We were talking to Matt Tate about Kansas football, and, there's so many guys who come in and out of the programs now. We just mentioned that, Jalen Daniels was there forever. Devin Neal was a guy who spent his whole time there, didn't leave. Cole Ballard's been sticking around, all that. There's a guy on the roster now in Dylan Edwards who's been all around everywhere. What do you think this is going to be like for him? We've seen these things happen. Guy played for Oklahoma and Texas, and now Kansas and Kansas State going down this way. What's it? What at his best? What can he do for Kansas? And is he going to make them a better team offensively?
He should. I mean, at his best, he's he's the difference between being good enough to be in a bowl and not. I mean, we've seen that, right? I mean, he had some really big days at K-State. He had some really big days at Colorado. I mean, those of us who live around here, he was as good as it got for 3 or 4 years at Derby High School. I mean, he was unbelievable. And Kansas recruited him hard. That was part of why this was so easy for him to land here, because it wasn't like the Darren Sproles situation where KU didn't really recruit him that hard and he went to K-State and then he dominated. Of course, Sproles didn't want to leave K-State, and at that time the portal wasn't a thing, so he couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
So different, not apples to apples there by any means. But again, when Dylan was looking for another place to finish his career at this point, it wasn't like it was a bunch of KU coaches that had dissed him and not giving him the time of day and didn't have a relationship with him and didn't want anything to do with him. I mean, they recruited him hard out of high school. And so when it came back to, hey, do you want to look at our place to finish your career, the relationships were already there. There was already some respect that went both ways. At that point, it was more about the fit, and of course, the financial part of it all is a part of everything today. So, I think that was important, though, that he felt comfortable talking to those guys right away because he already knew them. So I think he has a chance. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay happy. He's got to stay, right where he is. I mean, I think he had a great spring, and I think he was all those things. I mean, I think his teammates talked about how much fun he's been to be around. He talked about how much fun he was having and how happy he was to be at KU and all of that. So if all those things stay the same and he remains healthy and all that, I mean, he's a dynamic player. He's as good as there is in the conference probably, and especially when you look at a guy like Kodolnicki and how he can find different ways to use him and utilize his talents and different skill sets and all that. He could be a game changer for KU. It's not a given. It's not a guarantee by any means, but it was a big time pickup, and they're lucky to have him too, because he's got a chance to really help that offense.
Matt, the offense should get better, just with the coaching as we talked about, but the defense needs to get better.
Yeah,
I mean, it just absolutely has to get better. They were as bad as you could get for a long time, and even in Coach Leipold's first year, because it was just an odd time to get hired, when he did, and you understand that part of it. They have gotten better, but they need to take a major step. Is that possible with what they have on the roster? And then in the Big 12, pretty wide open offenses still. It's we judge this differently. You're not going to give up 12 points a game or something like that. That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
But they need to get considerably better. Do they have what it takes to maybe do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I think that's a major question mark. They talked all spring about increased speed on that side of the ball, and so that's important. Speed isn't always the only thing, but it can help, and it wins a lot of time. So I think that's good news. Now, again, it's just talk so far. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of these I've been through where you hear coaches talk in the preseason about how things are going, or spring football about how good guys look, and then it rolls around to the season and it was all just kind of sunshine and rainbows. And of course, I've been criticized my whole career for writing that stuff, but you have to write what they tell you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't just say they didn't say that stuff. That was part of the job. So, but I get it. I do get it. And people get tired of hearing it, especially when it doesn't ever change. So, we'll see. I don't think this is the kind of coaching staff or the kind of culture that KU has now that they would just run their mouth about, well, we have all this speed now, if they didn't have it. I mean, I think they probably have improved dramatically on that side of the ball. But now we got to see if that speed can play and how guys fit together. I mean, they lost a lot on defense from last year. Now, they have a little bit back, and getting Trey Latham back at the linebacker position might have been as important a piece as anything this offseason. He entered the portal, or was going to, and wanted to look around, but decided to end up staying. And he had a huge year for them, and he was a big part of that defense last year, which, take that with a grain of salt too, right? They weren't that great, but they had moments. And that even, I go back to the game at Missouri, they had moments where they played pretty tough down there. They were just physically overmatched. But in terms of being in the right places and having a good scheme and a good game plan, I mean, they were ready for that game, and Missouri was a good team. So The physicality just got him in that one. So having a guy like Lathan back's huge. Having a guy like Jalen Todd in your secondary, he's ready to step into a bigger role, both as a player and a leader, and he's really talented too. And then, of course, they've got all kinds of newcomers, portal guys, freshmen, whatever you want to say. I mean, that's part of it. And they add guys every year, and they need to find a couple of guys. I'll tell you another guy that's a name to keep an eye on, though, and he's a name KU fans should already know. I mean, Leroy Harris was a really productive DN for him last year. I think he led the team in sacks. Everything that I hear is that he's ready to even be more impressive and take another step than he did last year. Possible breakout kind of guy. I don't remember his measurables right now, but he's long and he's tall and he's athletic, and he's also one of the fastest guys when you talk about miles per hour. Not in the 40 or anything like that, but just a pure speed guy. I mean, he's even at his size, he's one of the fastest guys on this roster, and so he has a chance to have a really, really big year. And if he can, we've seen it at all levels of football, right? I mean, if you get a guy who can come off the edge and kind of dominate one side on the defense, it helps the other 10 guys on the field tremendously, because offenses tend to, shut down that side and shy away from going there and kind of roll things to protect him, and then that leaves other guys open to make plays on the rest of the field. So I love Leroy this year. I loved him last year. He's a great young man. He was a transfer from Chattanooga last year, and he had a good year. But I think with a full year of understanding what this is all about, this level, Kansas football, and now his increased role, I think he has a chance to be a name that people are like, wow, that dude's a monster. And I think he is. I mean, they've had some really good guys come through there. A few years ago, Lonnie Phelps was a dominant pass rusher in the Big 12. He had a really good year for them. He was a transfer. Austin Booker followed him up. He got drafted by the Bears. He's having a good career in the NFL, and he was a monster. If he had stayed, I think he had Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year potential, but he left for the draft, and turns out he made a good decision because he got drafted, I think, in the 4th round, and has had a nice start to his pro career. So, they've found a way to get production out of that, that edge rusher, and had plenty of guys that do really pop there. So I think Leroy's a guy that can do that, and they need him to. They need some other guys to step up around those names we just mentioned, but speed helps. If they really do have an increase in speed, that'll help, but it's still going to be about a couple of newcomers, and if they are what they thought they were getting, and if they're not, then yeah, it could be another long year for the defense.
Matt, let's go down memory lane a little bit here. Missouri and Kansas, you mentioned there, they renewed their rivalry last year for the first time in a long time, but Kansas is going to host Missouri for the first time since 2005 this year. Now, you're not as old as me, but you've been covering Kansas even way back then. So I'm looking this thing up. We were talking to Chris Gervino a little bit earlier, and he's obviously on the sidelines for Mizzou. And I was like, this has been 21 years, and I don't remember this game. I'm sure you covered it and remember it more. 13-3, Kansas.
Was it Brad Smith? Was
Brad Smith, yeah, and Jason Swanson for Kansas. How about that? 12-19 with 2 picks, but won the game somehow because Kansas defense is really good. I mean, Akiba Talib was on that team, and they held Missouri, and Brad Smith and Chase Daniel, by the way, who would always come in and kind of like play a series as a freshman. To just 3 points. Does this one ring in your ears? You remember this game?
Yeah. I mean, because I was blown away. I mean, Brad Smith was obviously a big-time quarterback at Mizzou, and went on to have a great, sort of, what was he, a jack of all trades in the NFL, right?
For sure,
Receiver, return guy, all those things. So he was talented, and I was blown away by how effective KU was defensively against him and what Missouri had done all year. I mean, that was an anomaly. That was wild, and I think a lot of it was KU, took on the personality of their head coach, and that was Mark Mangino said, we're going to be tougher than these guys, and we're going to hit them in the mouth, and then we're going to do it again, and then we're going to do it again, and we're going to make him uncomfortable, and we're going to make him wish he didn't show up at Memorial Stadium on that Saturday afternoon. And that's exactly how the game played out. I mean, Brad Smith couldn't do anything, and he just kept being harassed, and he kept being bothered, and it showed. He looked rattled, and that was new. I mean, Kansas. Obviously Mangino was at the very beginning of his ascent there, right? But that was new. I mean, Kansas wasn't the kind of team that dictated anything most of my life, really, up to that point. But Mangino made it clear that this is the team they were going to be, and this is the way they were going to do it. And in that game, it stood out, almost as well as any of his entire career here, but certainly as any up to that point. I mean, that was a heck of an afternoon. And I'm sure they would have loved to score more than 13, but as it turned out, all they needed was 6.
That's right. It could have been enough.
One of those really, really memorable days for that reason, because Brad Smith was crazy talented, and they made him look like a JV high school quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a really, really rough day.
Pretty wild. And that got them on a little bit of streak where they won 4 out of the last 5 and made a bowl game, which was a big deal. And Michael Darcy is our board op here. He's only 24 years old, okay? He's a youngster, Matt.
Yeah, he is.
I'm going to ask you a question, Matt. Do you remember who the opponent was the next week? This was a watershed moment. The Nebraska Cornhuskers came in.
There you go. Yeah.
Kansas boat raced them. Tore the goalpost down. Now, here's your question, Michael Darcy. Who was the quarterback for Nebraska in 2005 who got beat 40-15 at Memorial Stadium?
I should know this, but I don't know this.
Coaches against the Chiefs sometimes. He's taken a team to a Super Bowl and lost. And nobody likes him. And he kept his job this year in the AFC Central. Coach is
AFC
Joe Burrow.
Central?
Who's Joe? Or North?
Oh, Zach Taylor.
Zach Taylor was the quarterback that day. How about that?
That's incredible. I had forgotten that. So don't feel bad, young fella, that you didn't know that.
He wasn't very good that day. So
no, I remember that he wasn't. I remember that. Yeah, I do remember the game, of course. But yeah, no, I would have. Wow, that's a great little nugget.
And then he played there the next year too. They made the title game, the Big 12 title game, the next year. Zach Taylor, they did make it. They lost to someone. I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was Oklahoma. I remember that one. But yeah, that was a crazy game. I went out there as a fan because I always like to watch someone finally beat Nebraska. I was lucky enough in 1998 to be at the K-State Nebraska game. I was very upset that I wasn't at the game, and I think it was 2003 when Missouri finally beat Nebraska. And I was out there in 2005 sitting with Aaron Swartz up in the seats because I knew Kansas was going to beat Nebraska. They weren't any good, and they crushed them.
Bludgeoned them. I mean, they could have scored so many more. What was
fastest goalpost ripping down I've ever seen in my life? Took 2 seconds.
Yeah,
they were down like the wind blew them over.
Efficiency.
Oh, unbelievable!
There you go.
And it was on.
That's what they need this year from their offense. That kind of efficiency. But yeah, that was. I mean, they could have scored so many more points. Really, truly, like. Nebraska had no answer that day, and it was a perfect storm. It was cool, and the K-State one was isn't that the one where Nebraska fans still have the photo
Eric Crouch, the face mask.
With his head turned and a clear face mask that wasn't called. I'm not trying to dog K-State. I mean that
was a wild game. It was Michael Bishop versus Crouch. I mean, it was like there were some dudes on that field.
Yeah, there were.
Wild,
man.
And
that was an incredible K-State team.
And those goalposts took forever to get down because they had bought these fancy goalposts that weren't supposed to come down. But you know what? They got them down.
They got them.
It took a lot of work, but they got them down.
They'll be trying if they hadn't got them that night. Even 20, however many years later, they'll be trying.
Yeah, they'd be trying.
That for people who didn't live then or were too young to understand it, that was decades worth of frustration coming out into one glorious afternoon for the KU fans in 2005, one glorious night for the K-State fans their year. I mean, it was, not only beat down after beat down after beat down at the hands of the Big Red, but also year after year after year of their fans turning your stadium red.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why at the time I mean, 76 points pretty good, and obviously they kicked their butts. But at the time, I remember thinking like, no, you should go get 100. I mean, like don't pull back. And there's class involved, and Mangino did the right thing, and maybe they wouldn't have got to 100 either. But I think they should have. I think if they wanted to try and would have tried, I don't think anybody would have blamed them because, again, that's decades and decades of frustration that you get to forget about and enjoy for at least one day. And there've been many days since then. I mean, Nebraska's obviously not what they were, but boy, what a couple of memorable games those are for the local schools. That's for sure.
Good times for sure. See, it's a history lesson for the youngsters out there, too. Matt, appreciate your time, and I know Jason will have you on plenty during the year talking about the Jayhawks.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm glad to talk to you, man. It's been a little while, so I'm glad you're well, and enjoy the rest of the summer or whatever's left of it, and, yeah, we'll catch up soon, I hope.
And these Chiefs fans are going to forgive you for being a Broncos fan, but it's just how you're raised. It's okay. It's okay.
They won't, especially now. You know, the last 5 years or so they forgave me because it was easy. We were a
little different now, isn't it? Yeah,
we're a little different now. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I hate it that it's week one. I really do. I hate it for both teams. I hate it for the rivalry. I hated all of that. I mean, the opening day is big enough. It's exciting enough. Who cares who you're playing? You know, you get the juice off of that. But we'll see. I mean, I think it'll be a heck of a game, and it'll be fun to see if Mahomes is ready. I wouldn't bet against him, but how ready is ready? That'll be my question. And I love, as a salty Broncos fan, I love that they gave him that's the Sunday night game, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that they gave him absolutely as much
Monday night, even an extra day. Yeah, Monday night.
Oh, yeah, there, right, exactly. So, yeah, they gave him as much time as possible to be ready for that game. So I'm not upset about it.
Did you hear Matt Tate doubt Patrick Mahomes being ready? I just want you all to remember that. He just doubted he's going to be ready.
No, go back and rewind the tape. I wouldn't bet against him to save my life, but I know Denver will be ready. I know that. That it's been fun to watch them get relevant again because God, that sucked. It was my first time in my life, Leabo. I mean, that my childhood was full of Denver winning.
Oh yeah,
Super Bowl. Even though they didn't win all the Super Bowls,
they were around.
There, and so. Yeah, for this that stretch.
That's a rough 10 years, you know.
Well, it wasn't that long.
Yeah,
but
it was maybe something like that.
Maybe something like that. It was 5 or 6 really rough ones with Russell Wilson and all of that mess, you know. So
and now your hopes are all on Bo Nix. That's fine. That's okay.
I love the kid.
I know you do. You'd rather have him out there than Jarrett Stidham. I know that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I showed up that day. Last thing, I showed up that day at the stadium. I had just won some kind of DraftKings bet. I don't even remember what it was. Probably NFL playoffs or something. And you know, I cashed $300 or $400 on some parlay that I hit. And so I showed up the day before the game. We got out there pretty early, and so I showed up the day before the game. Went to the stadium store, and I had $180 in my hand. I was going to buy the Jarrett Stidham jersey, and I was going to freaking wear it to the game. And I was going to be able to look how cool I am. This is amazing. And I had the damn thing in my hand in the store, and it was packed, and everybody's in there buying whatever they want, you know. And I'm holding my size, and I'm holding the thing, and I'm standing there with my buddy, and I'm just hesitating, and I'm just hesitating, and I'm just hesitating. And I said, I think we're going to win the game still. I'm not worried about that. But the problem is, if we lose, I'll never wear it again.
Ever.
If we win, I'll wear it the rest of my life, and it'll be the greatest thing ever. And remember how cool I was for wearing it that day, blah, blah, blah. But I just kept saying, if we lose, it'll be.
You didn't buy it?
Throwing $180 out the window, and so no, I didn't buy it. So it could be my fault.
It could be.
If I had bought it, we would have figured it out. Maybe he would have held on to that ball instead of gifting them a touchdoin there with that little weird fumble. But
maybe somebody would have told Peyton the snow was coming. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Tough.
All right.
Hey, did you read that ESPN story on Seth Wickersham spent like 7 days in a row with Peyton that week or something like that? It was out recently.
I'll go back and read it.
It's a long read, but it's really interesting. It shows you a lot about Sean Payton, and you know, love him or hate him, it's interesting to get into that mind, and it talks a lot about obviously the lead up to that game and the whole bit. So if you're bored beyond tears one day, then that'll be a good read for you. I don't expect anybody listening to read those. So
I'll read it. Thank you, Matt. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy.
Take care.
That is Matt Tate, longtime Broncos fan. I'm sure if I read that story, I'll not like Sean Payton even more. That's my guess. But I'll go check it out.
Might be the perfect thing to do.
It's all you need, a little more fuel for the fire between the Chiefs and the Broncos. Welcome back into the zone. Another band without a dead person. What are you doing this? Motley Crue, Michael Darcy.
I did not know that.
You didn't know? You're pulling out a lot of bands who've survived it. Should have people who have died at some point.
Give me your list of the
No,
dead
you don't
bands
need
that
to
you
play
want.
dead band.
Well,
Motley
you're
Crue's
complaining
fine.
about
No,
they
no,
just
I'm not
being
complaining.
alive.
I'm just, can you believe that no one from Motley Crue has died?
That is surprising.
They did a lot of partying back in the day.
A lot of drugs.
A lot of drugs and drinking. Speaking of drugs and drinking, let's bring our next guest in, John Kurtz. No, I'm kidding. John Kurtz is a healthy boy. In great shape. Never looked better, have you, Kurtz?
That's absolutely true. You know, I mean, I thought you were talking about my K-State days there.
Yeah, you were a little different back in the day when you were an intern, a little different. And now you're all doing CrossFit and all this stuff. You're all healthy. It's good.
Well, I'm just trying to be like you, Leabo. I mean, you're looking great these days yourself.
Yeah, I've been a little worse. I've had a rough year. I need to get back on. I did work out this morning, and I did eat a half of a leftover sandwich cookie thing that they brought back. But it was just half. It was just half. I had a very dry pork chop and some potatoes for lunch.
That's the problem. My intern days fattened me up while I was there. There was always food around. Like, you can't be around there without eating some kind of food.
Yeah, there's always food. And they don't just bring in, hey, look, salad. It's not the way it worked.
No.
Not the way it works. All right, John, you have a podcast, right? Open for Business, because you're a Brett Yormark stan. That's why you called it that, correct?
Well, you know, our fellow intern Seinfeld actually gave me the idea for that name. So credit him.
Oh,
you know, when I
good,
make
good
it big,
job,
credit
yeah.
him.
Yeah, you've already made it big. What, are you kidding me? You got tens of thousands of people watching your podcast every day. You went to K-State. You've covered K-State. We've done a little Missouri, a little Kansas here on the show today because I decided to make it a university day. Why not? Everything else is what it is going on in sports today. We were both down at Big 12 Media Days, and now SEC Media Days are going on. This is kind of like the dueling quotes and all the things that kind of go on at this time of year. First off, let me ask you a little bit. I'm sure you paid attention to the things that Greg Sankey has kind of said, and let's compare and contrast those with the way Brett Yormark went about his business down in Dallas. Is anything surprise you that's come out of SEC Media Days as you watched them in the last day and a half or so?
I mean, no, it's pretty on brand. I feel like if you have your bingo card of like everything you expect to happen at SEC Media Days, we've hit it. Eli Drinkwitz made a cringy joke. The SEC has complained repeatedly about strength of schedule and not getting enough respect in the playoff, despite, again, having more teams in the playoff than anybody and not actually making the championship game for a third straight year. And then they, big picture, say we could just leave and do our own thing and we'll be fine. And you can't do anything about it. These like threats that, you know, I do have to wonder how much of it is a leverage play from Greg Sankey to say like, hey, we can leave and do our own thing, and we're going to do that if this Senate bill doesn't work out the way that we want it to. I'm sure they know like there's a time crunch on it, and the more that they pressure, hey, you better give us what we want, or else they do have some level of leverage right now. But yeah, it's been pretty on brand, I think, so far from the SEC. I know that you're getting a chorus of people now coming out and saying, hey, this is real, this is a real threat. I saw like Heather Dinich, you know, Josh Pate, some others who are pretty connected in the college sports space seem to really be echoing that. Like, hey, watch out, the SEC could do this. I don't know. I'm kind of like Jamie Pollard at Iowa State, the athletic director, who was just like, just do it. Like, stop talking about it and do it. I mean, if you're really serious about it, then just do it. I'm a little tired of hearing the talk from the SEC on that.
Yeah. So, but honestly, how would that even work? What is it? I mean, I don't know if you can just go do that. I mean, there are government levels of government in all these states. Lawsuits would come. I mean, antitrust things, whatever. I think it just seems like impossible to do, regardless, unless you had, like, if the Big Ten wanted to go with them. I still think there's trouble on every front on that side.
Yeah, I mean, that's where like people talk about like, you know, monopoly stuff and like is there legal action that could be filed if the Big Ten and the SEC
There's
go off
always legal action that can be filed on anything. We know that.
Yeah. It is college sports, yes. So you need a law degree to follow it. So you know, there would be some threat there. I know some people have the theory that like this would be the beginning of them getting together, but them trying to do it in a way that doesn't look like it's so connected to avoid some of that. I have no idea. I'm not even sure the SEC totally knows. Some of this has to be born a little bit out of just hubris, right? Because we're seeing the way the SEC has reacted to the playoff selection committee, despite the fact that, again, they simply have not been good in the postseason for a long time, going back to that TCU-Georgia national championship game, which feels like it was forever ago. So if they're gutsy enough to sit here and still talk about being mistreated after all of that, surely they have the hubris to think, well, we would be just fine. And I'm not saying, obviously people would watch the SEC, but like, if you're just playing your own league, you're going to declare your conference champion, the national champion, like what? I don't know.
Well, the big question for me, John, is you don't seem to want to play your own league because now you're complaining that you've got 9 games you have to play.
Yeah, well, it's a great point. And speaking of the Big 12, LSU just dropped Arizona State from its schedule yesterday, and it was only like a month and a half ago that Alabama dropped Oklahoma State from its schedules. Like they're shedding Power 4 games in the future because they went to a 9-game conference schedule. Imagine the horror of playing 9 conference games like everybody else. So yeah, it's a very valid point. It's college sports, and the SEC is not alone in being just completely obsessed with its own self-interest and being a little hypocritical. Again, we're talking about college sports. It's been that way through the history of time. But when you're going to be so brazen about it with what you say at the podium and your general attitude about it, I do think it deserves to be called out. So I really have no idea where it's all going to end up, even with the Senate bill itself. I mean, that's the whole thing. Ted Cruz was talking about getting it out for a vote by the end of the week, but the conferences still haven't seen a finalized version of it because the SEC and Big Ten have been pushing for all these different changes. I just have no idea what to expect, and we've got a season to play too. All this is just coming down the pipe. It seems like there's whether it's realignment or now in this case a Senate bill, and is someone going to break away? It always seems to be happening like July, August as we're rolling into a season. So I don't know. There's a lot to sort out.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I always like to say. It's like they really are, building the train track in front of the train that's rolling. That happens all the time. And there's no way to stop it. You just can't say, well, let's not play football for 2 years and figure this whole thing out. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, I mean, the whole system is just set up in a way. Someone gave me this analogy, and I thought it was great. They were like, the college sports right now is kind of like healthcare in America, where it's like if you were starting from scratch, you would never, ever, ever build it this way. But you've gotten there because of doing just all these weird decisions, winding roads that have gotten you to this point where it just makes no sense. And that's where they're at right now.
And it's hard to just wipe it clean and start fresh because things happen in the healthcare system. People are sick; they need to go, and college football, you need to feed itself while it's working on. John Kurtz is our guest. He's got a podcast, Open for Business, covering the Big 12 and K-State as well. Let's talk a little bit about K-State. We've just talked to Missouri and Kansas. This show today, new quarterbacks at both of those. There's new quarterbacks basically everywhere. That's the way the world works now. Kansas State has the luxury of having a guy back who's been there. Now it's 4 years for him. Brand new head coach, though, but a coach who's familiar with the quarterback, especially in Colin Klein, because he was just gone for a couple of years to A&M. What do you expect Coach Klein's impact to be on Avery Johnson as they get ready to get this season going? And how important is it for Avery to really take a monstrous step forward for this team to get to where they want to be?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the million-dollar question for the team, and I think I view it as like he's got to take like 2 steps forward if they're going to be what the fans really want them to be. Now they've got a cushy schedule. I mean, there's no denying it. At least on paper, right now, they've got a cushy schedule. So if you're wanting this team to win 9+ games, which a lot of the Vegas over/unders that you're seeing right now, I know like that MGM had it at 8.5. Like that's kind of the line. If they're going to be over it, I think Avery and the offense are really going to have to carry the team. And I don't know where my confidence level is on that. I think the positive would be that a couple of years ago in 2023, Avery's freshman season, Colin was still the offensive coordinator. And that was definitely when you saw Avery cutting it loose and running it the best that he has in his career. Like didn't look tentative at all. Had the game against Texas Tech where he had 5 rushing touchdowns. Just looked instinctive and decisive, and that's what got everybody's hopes up and the hype machine really running for him. And I think over the last couple of years, whether you want to attribute it more to coaching or he himself, it just felt like when he became the starting quarterback,
little more tentative, not playing off instinct as much, trying to force being more of a pocket passer, perhaps for like his NFL aspirations. But it was really interesting conversation that I had with him at Big 12 Media Days. I just asked him straight up, like, hey, man, it just looks like you haven't been running as hard. You know, I mean, there are multiple times. If you go back and watch the Iowa State game, there was like a 4th and 1 at a crucial moment in that game. And he just, instead of putting his head down and trying to go get a yard, you know, just kind of curls up. Now, I get it. He's not Colin Klein. He's not built like him. But you want a little more, I think, in terms of the effort and desire from him. And he just flat out told me, it's the way I was coached. So he seems to put it on. I don't know if that was Matt Wells. I don't know if that was Chris Kleiman. But they really made it a point, it seemed like, to try and keep him healthy. In fairness, he stayed really healthy. But you've just got to play him with more reckless abandon. And Colin told us at Big 12 Media Days, like, that's the plan. Like, we're going to call plays to win games. He told a great story about Dana Dimmel, his old offensive coordinator in college, once upon a time telling him, hey, we know you're beat up this week. We're not going to run you that much. Don't worry. That wound up being the 2011. It was like a 4 overtime game against Texas A&M that they won on a quarterback sneak, and Colin had over 30 carries.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's I think the attitude that Colin's going to bring to the table. I hope a lot of that rubs off on Avery, because I don't know that it's going to be him improving by 2 steps passing the ball, but it's just got to be using his athleticism, which is the best skill that he has, to turn himself into a great player, not necessarily like thrower of the ball. Like, just go make plays, and that's what K-State's going to have.
We are talking to John Kurtz about K-State, and when I talked to Coach Klein, listen, we all know, we heard the stories, you know, he couldn't even hardly practice when he was playing because Coach Snyder and Dana Dimmel kept calling those run plays. I mean, right in the line. I mean, they just did it constantly. And, you know, there were times he was so beat up he couldn't practice, but at game time you had to go out there and do it. And, you know, I think you could do that in 2010, 11, 12. I don't know. You run the risk now of doing that, and someone's like, I don't think I want to do it like this. I want to go to the league, and I want to throw the ball. Maybe I want to play, and I don't want to do this. He doesn't seem to care about that right now, because he's like, listen, we're going to throw you into the fire. It's going to get hot here, and if you don't want to play this way and practice this way, we'll find other people to go do that. Is it a little dangerous to kind of – how do you balance in 2026 the old school – with the new school? Because I think that's as tricky a thing as there is to do now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Colin did say at his introductory press conference he's trying to be the new old school. So there's he's already on top of the messaging to that. But you're right. I mean, I think, like, Avery is he's much more emblematic of, like, the new generation of athlete and player, where he's got a bunch of skill, but does he have the same, like, drive and determination and just, like, I'm going to go put my head down and get a yard when we need a yard that guys like Colin Klein had? Or, like, I always thought it was such a contrast to me watching the Iowa State K-State game last year, because Rocco Beck did that all the time. Every time he played K-State, he was just killing you, making plays on 3rd and 3. He's going to go get 4 yards. Like, Avery has not been that kind of guy, and I think that's what they need him to be. I think if you're Colin, though, one, I would point out that he did a great job with Marcel Reed last year, who I think Avery Johnson's probably more talented, probably has more upside even than Marcel Reed, but he turned Reed into a really productive quarterback, won a lot of games with him, so there is some level of track record there. And if it doesn't work out, I know with the 5 years of eligibility thing now, Avery does technically have another year of eligibility that he could come back and play next year. But I just think you've seen so much of him. If it's not going to work itself out this year, if there is a risk of running him off or making him upset with what's going on this year, it's just like you've had enough time. So I don't think there's really all that much downside to it. I think you just come in and you're like, hey, if we're going to have a big season, it's going to have to come because Avery is the guy that makes that sort of development. We're going to push him that way. And if he doesn't like it and it doesn't work out, then we'll just start developing Dylan Duff, who I think is probably the next guy in line there at quarterback, and you just move on. That would be my take on it. I don't know if that's 100% how Colin views it, but that's how I would view it from my spot.
Yeah, I think Avery is exactly the poster child for kind of what today's football is. Now, he hasn't gone anywhere. He's stuck around. So there are other kind of poster children who have played at 3 schools or something like that. But he is, I don't know the kid. I've talked to him a couple times at media days, but I've watched him kind of grow up and, now you've got money in your pocket. You got the the tailored suits, and you kind of like that side of it. Whereas before, nobody knew a thing about a tailored suit. They give you a suit that you could wear, or a sport coat that you could wear to media days, and that was it. So he's got a lot of that to him, but he's got a lot of football talent too. I guess the question is, are you going to care more about how you look, or are you going to care more about how you play? And that's, I mean, it's time to figure that out, because this is it.
Totally with you. I mean, like there's just been such a long, he's played a lot of football. You know, I mean, it's crazy to think about because it doesn't seem like that long ago that he was at Mays and it was such a huge coup when K-State landed him. But he's in 2 full years as a starter, both relatively disappointing. Certainly last year was very disappointing. He told us at media days, like they just had locker room problems. Guys, you know, pretty quickly kind of abandoned the season when it was going downhill early on, and that was a real problem. And that's where, you know, you'd hope that he would be the guy with the kind of leadership ability to help rally the locker room. And, you know, I just wonder, I hope to be proven wrong, but I just wonder if that's really like in his personality. Like he's just a little more, first of all, his playing style is kind of finesse, and he is a little more soft-spoken. I think when you're around him, like he's just not like the rah-rah leadership energy guy. Doesn't mean that you can't turn into that. Doesn't mean that you can't still be a great leader. And hopefully that's going to happen. I mean, Colin was like the ultimate example of a guy not only who could be rah-rah leader, but just with toughness and lead by example, was going to pull everybody along with him. So you got to hope that that's going to really flip the switch for him this year to get him back with Colin. I do have some optimism with that, but I think what we've seen so far, it just indicates that Avery has not been that guy.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. John Kurtz is our guest, and you mentioned maybe locker room issues. A lot of things were going on. I mean, Chris Kleiman had whatever going on. I know there were some maybe health issues in the family. I don't think he liked how the world was anymore. I think part of that might be like players like Dylan Edwards, who they thought they had committed, who went to Colorado and then showed up, and then he was there, and then was he hurt? Was he not hurt? Did he fumble the ball the first game of the year? And now he's going to be at Kansas. That's another poster boy for today's football too, right? What do you think was wrong? I mean, this is guessing. You weren't in the locker room. What do you think was kind of going wrong with the team last year? If you've had people actually say, the locker room wasn't great, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Like, I think for one, you pointed it out. Like Dylan Edwards, I think they built a lot of the offense around him. Certainly, a lot of the game plan week 1 or week 0 against Iowa State in Ireland, and then that was out the window, like literally the first time he touched the ball. And outside of one blip on the radar where he came back and rushed for 100 yards against UCF, like that was it. And so you were banking on guys who let you down. And I think obviously Avery Johnson has had a lot more loyalty to K-State than Dylan Edwards has. But I think those guys, like they're same thing we talked about Avery being like this new generation of athlete, right? Where it's very skilled, a ton of talent, but just not that. I think that whole team had more talent than a lot of like the Snyder 2.0 teams toward the end, or even the first handful of Chris Kleiman teams, really outside of that Big 12 championship team. But they didn't have like enough leadership and toughness and guys like that. And I think that was a huge problem. And they had built the roster around like Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, and both were disappointing to different degrees and different levels. But in that regard. So I think that's step one. I think step two is, yeah, it's more of an era where it's way easier to just give it up and cash in on a season if things don't work out. I would even, Jace Brown, who was their star receiver, again, wildly talented, really good player. He's now at LSU, but he's kind of that same way too when you think about temperament and guys that they were really counting on the team. I would throw him right into that same category with like Avery, Dylan, and company. So just a different breed of K-State athlete than what you had in the late Bill Snyder 2.0 era. And even back, obviously, when Colin Klein was playing. Then it gets easier to cash it in on a season. Then you throw in Chris Kleiman getting tired of dealing with this. He told a story. I can't remember if this was behind the scenes or if he had told this publicly, but like someone coming into his office in the middle of the season, like demanding more money, more or less. I think he was just tired of putting up with stuff like that. He did have some health things going on. I know there were some family things going on in the 2024 season, like right around the Houston game that they lost, which was really what started the downturn of Kleiman there at the end. So I think when you got a head coach who's distracted and not super happy with dealing with all this, an environment that makes it easy for guys to give up, and a team that was built around a lot of talent, but just not this like leadership toughness sort of culture. I think you can see how it starts to crumble pretty quickly.
I remember talking to Coach Kleiman out in Vegas, like that was 2 years ago, I guess, media days. And this is the kind of the first year of the kind of, it really was kind of NIL deal, whatever. And he's like, I just don't want to know anything about it. You know, he's got people to do that. Man, I don't think it's going to work, man. You got to know something about it. And as much as if I were him, I also wouldn't want to know anything about it. But, you know, you hear those things. Coach Leipold told me a story last week when we were down there that they had a player who they had given, you know, a considerable amount of money to, who was playing last year, and he wasn't good enough, so they played another guy in front of him, and the guy who they played more was getting less money, and then that player ended up leaving because he wanted more money than the guy who wasn't playing. So it used to be currency was the playing time. Well, now currency is the currency. It doesn't matter if you're playing 90% of the snaps. If the guy in front of you or the guy behind you is making more money than you, you're going to want to redo your deal. It's just like, and they're not real contracts like you have in pro football or something like that. It's not something I'd really want to deal with. Of course, they're all making $4, $5, $6, $10 million, whatever. I guess you have to deal with it if you're a coach. You have to do it, but it's just not for everybody, I guess.
I mean, yeah, not for everybody is an understatement. I mean, I don't know who it's really for. You definitely have a younger generation of coaches who seem more able to handle it, but to me it feels like it's more like just you can deal with the necessary evil instead of, if you get to a certain point in your career, you got enough financial security, you have enough clout with where you're at, you have enough just overall satisfaction with what you've done in your career, or you have a landing spot in the NFL. I mean, I totally see why guys are just like, yeah, peace out. Like, I'm not going to deal with this. It will be really interesting. I know this is kind of going back to the original discussion, but Protect College Sports Act in the Senate, I mean, one of the things that is a huge piece of that I think would go the furthest in just solving all the mass chaos that we have right now is being able to enforce a one-time free transfer rule. So it'd be like the old, that like you can transfer one time without penalty. After that, you're going to have to sit out a year. And obviously, legal issues again that come up with that. But if they can ever get to that point where they have the ability to enforce that, then I think we'll be in a much, much better place, and that will cut down on some of this.
Yeah, no question about it. A couple more quick ones here for you, John. October 17th, Kansas comes to Kansas State. What, assuming Dylan Edwards is healthy and playing, what will that response from the fans be for him?
Whew. If the response from the players at Big 12 Media Day was any indication, I think he's going to get a pretty rude greeting there, man. I mean, the players, they didn't say anything, but it was like the look on their faces, these like one-word answers. You know, it wasn't even in some cases like kind of giving you some coach speak. Like I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost there. And like you can understand why it doesn't take a genius like to read between the lines there. Like I said, it was like one play, he's out, he's never really back. It was all these mysterious circumstances. You don't really know what exactly happened. It was just such a bizarre deal last year. Without even going into anything that you hear behind the scenes, you can see how you'd be like, man, the season fell apart, and we were counting on you, especially in week one when you really just set the tone for what was to come, and it was because of your fumble and then just disappearance act. So, yeah, best of luck to Kansas with that. If he's great, he has the potential to be, but I will just say best of luck to Coach Leipold and company in making that work this year.
All right, everything goes great for K-State. Is this a team that could be in the college football playoff?
I think the schedule makes it a possibility, at least getting to the Big 12 championship game. I'd have a really hard time seeing this roster being good enough to actually win the Big 12 championship and get to the playoff, but the path is there on paper for them to get there. Now, I say that, and I was reminded by my buddy Cole Manbeck, who hosts the Three Mod podcast with me, that we thought that 2 years ago, and their schedule wound up having Arizona State and BYU, who nobody thought anything of in the preseason, but they wound up being two of the best teams in the league.
Well, that's why we've stopped having preseason polls, John. Now nobody knows.
I know. Well, yeah, because we're all idiots, yes, right, in the media. We don't know what's going on. So that could change. But to me, yeah, the combination of having Avery back at quarterback, his potential, if you can unlock it, and then the schedule plays out the way that it looks on paper, they can certainly get there to me, it's a bridge too far to think that they would actually win the league.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of teams that I don't really – I mean, I think Kansas could be a lot better offensively with Kotelnicki coming back. So that's a game that I know it's at home for K-State. I think Houston, people have been maybe sleeping on Houston. I think a lot of people think Houston's going to be better, but those are home games. That's I guess, the good news. Some of the teams that might be better than people thought, those games are going to be there. And I mean, I think Oklahoma State with a new coach, they can't be worse. My God, They haven't won a league game since, I don't know, 3 years ago. And that's also in Manhattan. So those are good things, I guess, on the schedule. But, hey, listen, the league's too big. You can't play them all. That's the way it works. But
well, yeah, we're apparently going to get a 19-team limit in conferences with the Senate bill. That's the latest that Ross Dellinger is reporting. So we can't get any bigger than 19, Leabo.
Well, God forbid, let's not have divisions if we're doing 19. That's no way. Yeah. No way. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Hey, John, thank you for your time. Go check out his podcast, Open for Business, and it's fun. It's fun. He's always got a good hot take for you because he's open for business, just like the Big 12. That's John Kurtz. Thanks for your time, buddy.
Hey, anytime, Leabo. Take care.
All right, that's John Kurtz. Fun follow and fun to talk to, and a former intern, Michael. We love when the former interns move on and do well. See?
And do big things.
Perked his ears up. I told you to get out of this business, young man. Don't get in this business. It's too much work. It's way too much work. We've got a couple more segments of The Zone still to come on this beautiful, beautiful Tuesday. Welcome back to the Zone. This is the Cult. I don't know if anyone's dead in the Cult. Maybe. You tell me Ian Astbury or Billy Duffy are dead?
I thought this was Nirvana.
No, the song's called Nirvana. This is the Cult. You're so young. The Cult, the song's called Nirvana. Nirvana!
We'll fact check this.
You know, you need to go, you should listen to the first 2 Cult records. They're fantastic. Maybe the third one even. Third one's when they got really popular.
So listen to the first 2, and then I'll be up to date.
Oh,
or not up to date.
You
but
could listen to the first
speed.
3 Cult records. They're all very good rock and roll from back in the day. Hey, now is the time where we would normally be playing Fact or Fiction, brought to you by Choice Solutions. But Fact or Fiction, I'm left here alone today. Fact. So we're not playing
They're
Fact
alive.
or Fiction.
Fact, by the way.
Yeah, we're not playing that, but let's still have this segment be brought to you by Choice Solutions. They really are great folks. We just spent some time talking to John Kurtz. Choice Solutions does managed IT and all that stuff, takes it all out of the hands of your company. They're good K-Staters, too. They're right down the street here. I've been over to their place. They're awesome people. So if you own a business and you don't want to handle all your IT stuff yourself, choicesolutions.com. Find out more. Small companies, big companies, whatever you want, they can help you. They really can, because some of this stuff is kind of beyond our capabilities. You know what I mean?
Most of it.
Choice Solutions can absolutely help you with that. They really are wonderful people, and they are right here in town. They can help you anywhere, though. ChoiceSolutions.com. They are Kansas City's IT experts, and you can go check them out there at Choice Solutions. Okay, we've been talking about a little expanded playoff. And I wanted to play this earlier, but we didn't get it in because we went long. I don't know how that happened on one of these segments, but let's hear from Greg Sankey on expanding the playoff. He says it may be easier said than done.
We don't have any idea at this point of the clear media interest in an expanded playoff. We do have an understanding of what happened when we went to 12, and we considered other formats. So that's one. Second is the calendar is challenging. There is a line embedded in the current version of the Protect College Sports Act that the football season be fully completed by January 8th. If you think through the implications of particularly that date, remember the American Football Coaches Association introduced that idea, produced a frustrated phone call from me to Craig Bowl about the lack of consultation. But you have to find places to play the games. And you have to think about whether overlap of those games when they're played is acceptable or not. I tend to think the access point is important for young people. And as we've had conversations in smaller groups, they can answer, I'd rather have a chance than not have a chance. But there are limits on the number of games that you can play.
There are definitely limits. And like I said, you know, in this government act, they say the thing's got to be over by this certain date. Well, you can't have a 24-team playoff if you're going to insist on playing 12 regular season games and have a college or have a conference championship. These things may go away. Maybe that means the Citadel doesn't come in and play anymore, or Arkansas Pine Bluff. Now, that seems fine for me as a guy who wants to watch real football games. But if you're someone who wants to go play football at Arkansas Pine Bluff and try to get, you know, a kind of free education by playing football and continue the old glory days, that's going to be gone because Arkansas Pine Bluff ain't going to be able to have football because it costs money to do this. And they get a lot of money that trickles down from all these things.
Not just that economic impact, but just think about all the teams that ramp up throughout the season that may be disappointed in week 4 or 5, but for the first 3 weeks, they're undefeated and things are good. If you play Texas week 1 and you lose, that might kind of take the wind out of the sails of the season.
Well, that's what's happened with a lot of these, you know, like Oklahoma or Ohio State and Texas played last year. They're going to play again this year. Oklahoma, Miami played. Michigan played last year. They're going to play again this year, week 2. I'm telling you, if this is going to be like pro football, you're just going to have to get used to that. Chiefs and Broncos are playing week 1, man. That's how it is. The Chiefs don't get to play a JV team. It's just on, right? You got to go. And if they want to be big time,
if you want to get paid like professionals, can't complain about it.
No more free games. Here's Eli Drinkwitz. He was at the podium yesterday, the Missouri head coach, talking about the same thing. He had this idea last year, where he'll kind of explain this here, like making the thing bigger and basically having the conference title games be play-in games, because they kind of are playoff games in a way, but sometimes in these leagues you can lose that game and still get in. Here's Drinkowitz kind of clarifying what he talked about.
I am not for giving the committee more opportunities to put teams in the playoffs. As nice as I can be about it, committees are a bad idea in deciding on who should get in sports arenas. Sports are meant to be played and decided on the field. My idea last year, or suggestion last year, was about play-in opportunities, and I think each conference should have play-in games that create the opportunity to get into the playoffs. That's how I see it. I think it would create more excitement, avenues for your fans to be excited. I think if the top 8 teams in your conference had an opportunity to play in the playoffs, that gives you a measuring stick for each fan base that makes sense. I think this elimination of conference championship games, while I understand it as a opportunity to help you win the national championship, doesn't make sense because it puts too much emphasis on a singular outcome. And we can talk all we want about the process, but don't focus on the outcome. And then everything we're doing in college football is about the outcome, one single champion. And again, that doesn't make sense to me. So again, conference championships are important, need to be preserved. They're highly entertaining. They're highly valuable from a monetary standpoint. They're highly valuable from a fan engagement standpoint. So throwing those away so you can get a bad matchup between 24 and 18 doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That part doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. I'm fine if 12-team playoffs, fine. I don't know why they had to go with these buys. That's part of the problem. I think if they go to 16, that's fine. But, dude, have as many games as you can on campus. I was down last year at the Alabama-Oklahoma game on that Friday night, first-round playoff game. It was awesome. It was electric. And even though my team lost, it was really fun when they were winning, and then they blew it, and it was not as much fun. But it was a great atmosphere. And listen, I got a buddy who works for the Peach Bowl. He's worked for the Peach Bowl for like 30 years. That's how he makes his living. But you know what? The Peach Bowl, they don't need the Peach Bowl. You know, they'll sit there and tell you, oh, you can't host these things because then you got to figure out a way to unwinterize your stadium because you got to have a game and sell these things. They figure it out, man. Division II football is doing this thing the whole time. They're playing these games on campus. They have their title games somewhere different. I understand. This is a little bit like John was saying with the healthcare system is what it is. The bowl system is what it is. Now they're trying to kind of fix their way through the bowl system and include these things and do all that. But we got to stop that thinking, man. If you want to have more meaningful football games that are awesome, have them on campus, have less games against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and get used to the fact that you may go 4-8 one year. Tough luck, man.
Just be better. Like, there's
Get
not
better.
really much to say. And it's so funny how, in an attempt to make more money, college football is trying to be more corporate. And that's not at the core what the game is. The game is being played in, on campus, whether it's in Lawrence, Columbia, Oklahoma, I guess Norman, wherever it is, there's just going to be more intrigue when it's actually played on campus, because I understand playing a national championship game at Mercedes-Benz Superdome, but have these games to decide who's going to advance to the next bowl game at home.
Yeah, if you want your seed to matter, you host the games. I mean, for the most part, the teams that had the buys, Indiana did all right last year, but some of these teams didn't do very well because they hadn't played. The other teams had played, and then they went and they would lose or something because they got the buy and they hadn't played. We've only got 2 years of data on that, and it's probably not going to last that very long because they're going to go to 16 or something like that. But Eli's kind of talking about out of both sides of his mouth. He wants to keep that conference championship game. Now, if his little system works into you play there and the two teams that go, one of them's out and one of them's in, and it's part of the playoffs, it's like the NBA play-in game or something like that. Maybe so. But there's going to be a dozen ideas on how to do this, and someone may have a really smart one, and they won't be able to get it through because, as I said before, 16 coaches come up with a cool idea. Well, now they got to let the ADs in, and then the conference presidents or the league, the presidents,
board of directors, chancellors,
and then it's got to go to the league staff, and then it's got to go to everything else, and then the TV people are like, I don't know about that. My buddy works for the Cotton Bowl, and we got to have this game down there because Jerry wants the game in his building. Well, tough luck, man. I don't know. There's no easy answers to it. There's no easy answers, but there'll be more talk about it forever. And I'm telling you, I'm 56 years old. They've been talking about a college football playoff since I was in college, and they finally got there, and it took 20-some years to get there. And it's still better than it was. Even if it's not perfect, it's better than it was. Because even while, well, you guys, were you reborn, Darcy?
02.
Okay. You guys weren't alive. But the last split national title in 1997, before they had the BCS, Nebraska was undefeated. Michigan was undefeated. What should they do? Well, they should play each other. Oh, no. We're going to have Michigan go to the Rose Bowl and Nebraska go to the Orange Bowl. They both win. They both get a title. Dumb. So we got at least to where we could have two teams playing, and then now we've gotten where you have 4, and now you get to where you have 12. Don't go too far.
24 is too far.
24 is too far.
Was he saying the top 8 teams out of the conference?
Yeah, and then they would play into a thing, and then they would go to the.
Yeah,
so
that's
you're kind
absurd.
of in the playoff. It's complicated. But it's wild. It's wild. One more segment to go here on The Zone. We'll turn it over to the program with Seren Petro. Welcome back into the zone. You know who this band is? You're reading this correctly?
I do.
What's the band name?
ZZ Top.
What's the name of the song?
That would be Tube Snake Boogie.
We're not going to ask you if you know what that is.
One can guess.
One can guess. So, just last year, somebody, maybe, actually, when did he die? Gosh, it's been 5 years. No. There's always, these are old guys, right? No, not the singer, but the singers and guitarist is Billy Gibbons, okay? They had the big long beards. You know what ZZ Top looked like at all? You know, you ever see the videos?
Roughly.
So, and then one of the bassist, he died in 2021. Dusty Hill. So they had the two guys with the big beards, Billy and Dusty, and then their drummer, his name was Frank Beard, had no beard. How about that?
That is amazing.
Now you're learning things.
That is so great.
That's how you're learning things. Exactly. Never saw ZZ Top live. I wish I would have.
They come to Kansas City a lot?
Ah, they used to come to Kansas City every once in a while. Yeah. I think they're still out there touring. They got someone new to play guitar. But
and they're, what is it called? Going away tour? What was the
farewell? You got to have
farewell?
85 farewell tours. You know, that's how it goes. Listen, heck, they may be coming here sometime soon.
Was the premier concert venue back in the day Municipal? Like that was the go-to
spot?
Well,
Kemper and Municipal, and then they built Sandstone, and that was the kind of thing. And now like Morton is open. And Municipal, I don't think Municipal has many concerts.
Well, that's why I was surprised
anymore.
when you mentioned that.
It was 1980 something. So
still,
yeah, I saw a few shows there. ZZ Top right now is in Valencia, Spain. Check them out. Is today the 22nd? Check them out tomorrow. Huh? How about that? I was in Valencia, Spain one time. Then they're all over Spain. Then they're coming to. They're going to be out at Chula Vista.
Great
Los
time to be in
Angeles.
Spain.
They're playing the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. So they're going to come around here. They're going to be in Austin, Texas. Give me a Missouri here. We got nothing. We got nothing. Boy, they're on tour all the way through November. Oh boy, then they get down to Brazil. They're going everywhere. Not here.
Are they coming back from Spain to then go back to Brazil? Not that Spain.
Yeah, that's gonna be a little while. They're gonna come from Spain to America, be running around California, West Coast, down to Texas, up to Michigan, Terre Haute. Let's see where they nowhere really close.
Indiana?
That's not that far from here. Petro and I drove through Terre Haute
on our way to
the combine.
Oh wow.
We had a great time in Terre Haute.
You know, Kansas gets a lot of flack for being flat and boring. Indiana's got to be close.
We pulled off the road in Terre Haute, and we were like, we got to get a drink and take a leak, and we got to the worst gas. I stepped out of the car, big pile of puke right there. And then we got to ask Petro, is he here yet? Ask him about the great price he got on a Diet Coke at the Wendy's there. It might have cost $6. We got her done, though.
You pay the Terre Haute tax.
It drove us in. We got to Indy. We got it done. Petro is coming up next. Frank Bowl, Sam McDowell, Eno Saris. That's all coming up next here on the program.